does. None of my ones from my reps do either. Like the link knows. Yep. Hello. I'm good. Hi, Jason. Yes, I'm logged in via Zoom, but I am. I have an email from Maya that said that this was the Thank you. I'm recovering. I'm at work and thank you. Yeah. How did they not know that there was? It's right on the agenda. So if anybody read the agenda.
Can you see us now, Megan?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Oh, there you are. Hi, guys.
Awesome. So now I guess station?
Want me to do that?
Yeah, because I don't know. Oh yeah, right there. I'm used to Teams. We use Teams for work.
Oh, okay. I can see you. So, oh, there we go. Thank you.
And then do you see, Megan, do you see just the presentation or do you see the next slide thing?
Yes, both.
Okay, here, let me see that. I can figure that part out.
Okay.
What we gotta do is we gotta take this here.
You're welcome.
And then we just switch. Presentation. Do you see just the presentation now?
Now I see just the presentation.
Okay, very good, very good. Okay, so what we'll do here is that down in
Now you
the,
got a piece of six. Now it's coming to
I guess
six.
so. So, well, I like to stand anyways when I'm doing these sort of things. So, tonight, well, first of all, welcome to the Street Maintenance Task Force meeting. My name is Jason. I'm one of the members of City Council, and I'm going to be Jerry and I will be facilitating this first meeting of the task force. I guess first we'll get started with introductions around the room.
Teresa Sassy, Canby citizen and business owner.
Laura Hunter, Canby citizen.
Not whatever, Canby citizen and from Crusoe Rose.
Okay.
Elaine Stein, city administrator.
Teresa Hensley, city council president.
Jerry Nelson, Public Works Director.
Brianna Adada, Associate Planner, City Canby. And Jamie Stickler, Director of Economic Development.
Okay, and then online.
Oh, Megan Waterman, citizen and business owner.
Awesome. So, we'll go ahead and get started, and we're gonna start with a history of the street maintenance fee. So originally, the Street Maintenance Fee Task Force was called together in November of 2005. So if you have a printout, actually we'll go over the materials in front of you. You've got a printout of the presentation, and Megan, I will make sure that you get a copy of all these.
Thank you.
A printout of the presentation, the agenda, and then this booklet that you have is
That's a book.
this tome. It has a ton of information. So there is a bunch of information about what maintenance has been done on the streets since the inception of the street maintenance fee. And when you get to a certain part of this, you also have a copy of the original Street Maintenance Fee Task Force booklet. I have saved it for many years, and so when you go through this, you will notice my personal notes on some of the pages. You will A, figure out that I am a horrible speller, and B, I do not have particularly neat handwriting. So I don't think there's any crazy notes in here, but you know, who knows, it might come back to bite me in the next election. So anyways, that's what you have here. So just as so we're gonna go ahead and just give you a brief kind of review of the Street Maintenance Fee Task Force and how this all came about. So as I mentioned, in November of 2005, the Street Maintenance Task Force was convened, and there was 11 members of the community on that original task force. And there was some fits and starts with that group. And in April, around April or June of 2007 is when the Street Maintenance Fee Task Force created their recommendations for the city council, because that was the goal of the Street Maintenance Fee Task Force, was to figure out some way to fund the streets long-term, because the current mechanisms were not working. And so in January of 2008, ordinance 1262, part of the municipal code, was created, and that created the street maintenance fee. And as we go along here, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to stop and ask. From there, why the street maintenance fee was created, and these were some of the questions that were, or the challenges that were posed to the task force at the time, was the classic funding mechanisms or funding sources for the city streets were declining. The gas tax revenue from the state and the federal government continued to decline, and the city was having trouble funding its street maintenance and keeping up with what was needed to keep the streets going. As such, the streets were degrading faster than what the current funding mechanisms were able to keep up with. So something we're going to talk about a few times in here, Jerry and I will be mentioning, is the paving condition index. This is a standard mechanism that's used to grade the street system for a city. Is there anything you want to add about that?
No, it looks like the Google car that drives around and it just shoots all the roads, and it just takes data on shooting roads, and and that's what you'll see in here. There's 2 studies we've done since we've created that, but basically it just rates it from 0 to 100 on what each street is, and then that's how we base where we pave.
And that's just pavement condition.
Just pavement conditions, yep, yep. And the PCI is just for pavement.
Very specific.
Just,
I
yeah,
was
very
thinking of
specific,
level
yeah.
of service and how many different things can it,
Yep,
so that's great.
And so at the time in 2000, when the paving condition index was done in 2000, the streets were at about a 65% grade overall, total. Because each street is given its own grade. In 2002, that had declined to 63%. And then it was projected that for 2005, it would be 57%. So without the street maintenance fees creation and that extra funding coming in, I have done the long-term projections out for future, and by 2022, the streets PCI would probably be plus or minus 5%. And the reason it would even be that high is because of new streets being added into the system. So as new developments are created, those streets go in and they are essentially start out at 100%. And so with as much development as the city has had in the last 5 or so years, that those streets would essentially be boosting the CPI and kind of elevating some of the roads that would be at a zero or failing rate. this is what that CPI looks like. And so you can see here that it's a range between excellent and failed. It says failed at the bottom. And so that was, so again, when the street maintenance fee task force originally met, we were sitting in that fair, the fair condition level there.
Can you explain upper and lower limit? What is that?
Jerry?
The range on like upper and lower on say excellent, they set a range on that because it goes, the way the roads go on wear and tear and how they wear is, there's a curve on it. So when it's brand new, it stays good. You'll notice the streets stay good to a
That's
certain
upper.
point. And then when it hits the 86 on the decline, then it starts going down to that. They start deteriorating faster,
Okay.
faster, if that makes sense.
Okay.
What does the number actually represent, like
100
percentage?
is perfect.
Like, but is
brand
it
new.
like, if it's brand new, but it's like, is it a percentage of wear, or I mean, how is that number gonna be? How do you score it?
The program that shoots the roads calculates all that. It goes into, I can look up and answer that. I mean, how does it?
It's just how does it come up with that number? What does the number actually represent? Does it mean it's 85% worn, or does that mean something else?
When the road comes out
Am I
of the
making
back,
sense?
well,
Okay.
when it comes out of the paver
Mhm.
and it's rolled and passes inspection, it's at 100. And
Okay,
every day it starts declining, if that
Okay.
makes sense.
okay,
Does that make sense? Like brand new,
okay,
yeah,
It's a grade,
Yeah.
not a percentage.
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, and
Gotcha.
so.
Thank you, yeah, okay.
What I remember of it as well is, so the road, because it's a sliding scale, when it takes a picture of that, it takes into condition the cracks and all of that other
Yeah.
stuff, and it says an excellent condition road is gonna fall between 100 and 86. An excellent road might be 95, but an excellent road could also be, 87 or 87. But then after it gets to that 85, then, so it gives a bit of an average. So that way it's not 100% is excellent, and then has to break it down by individual percentages.
Does that make sense?
I kind of.
So like.
So
I
it's
get
cool.
the gist of it,
Yeah.
essentially.
It's based on what the condition of the road is at the time that picture is taken. So how many cracks are in
But
it?
everything's taken into account, whether it's got a crack or it's got
Cracks.
a
It's got a
slope or
pothole.
pothole or, okay. I
Correct.
gotcha. Okay,
Oil failure, it's more exposed in areas, if it's got more truck traffic, more ruts, everything. I mean, and it calculates those areas. Like it might look good in the center and the sides, but the center's got a failure going, it would drop that lower limit even more.
okay,
And like when you drive over some roads, you'll notice that you can kind of see the stones a little more in it, and it's a little rougher than an evenly paved one. Those are all things that get taken into this percentage breakdown.
And when was the CPI done?
22.
The last, yes.
We did
So,
one, and they're both in this book. We did one in 05, 08.
yes,
The first one was in 08, and then the second one was in 22.
so to give you an idea of, this talks a little bit about the street life cycle. So this is the life cycle of the street. And you will notice that how these track.
Hold on.
And
Can I back
actually-
up? I want to back up. I apologize.
Yeah.
It was in 2018. The presentation we were doing was in 22. The CAPS did our last CPI in 2008, October of 18. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, and actually, Jerry, do you want to talk about this one here?
Well, yeah, just to keep this simple, basically, trying to give an example of where a road we saw this, like, do you guys remember South Redwood? So everyone in here drove when it was in front of the school and stuff?
Oh, yeah.
That's what happens when you don't maintain, you don't crack seal, you don't everything. So it goes good, 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 and then it gets to that point where it starts opening up, and then it just, you see how fast it deteriorates. So it's showing the scale of no
once it
maintenance.
hits fair, it just.
You know, no one likes slurry seal, no one likes crack sealing, all that stuff. Overlaying's the best, of course, but it goes in this, really goes into all of that in great detail on how to preserve your roads. But this just shows you when you don't do anything, how far, and then how expensive it gets to repair it by just not doing anything.
And if memory serves me correctly, the numbers that you are seeing here are based on 2021. So most of the numbers that you're seeing in these slides and stuff are 2021 numbers. You can start to figure in how much of a increase there was and costs and stuff from 2021 to now.
The other problem, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna, it was more of a actual request, but maybe when you're talking about overlay and slurry seal and
Okay.
whatever, maybe you should give us an idea, just because we don't deal with it like you do.
Yeah, thank you, Jamie. So we have many different types of pavement, what we do. Most of what we've been doing so far is overlays, and that's basically they come in, they grind out the bad spots, they put asphalt and compact it, and then they do like a 2-inch overlay, they brand new pavement over the whole street. And so that's when we're talking about overlaying a street, that's what that is. A slurry seal is what we're trying to get ahead of and doing. It's not, I don't like slurry seal, the term, I like micro seal, and it's actually a small aggregate. It's like what you look at in our parking lot. And that's when we come in the subdivision where it's new. It's newer, say it's only a few years old. We put that over it so it doesn't get cracks, it doesn't open, and it protects that road. And it actually works as a protective coating like chip sealing. You see where they do that, where you get tack and oil all over your car when they're driving and it throws the rocks everywhere. The county does a lot of that, and that's a protective surface for over the roads. We don't do any crack sealing in the city. We do some micro slurry seal, and overlays is our main thing that we do right now. So if that makes sense.
So overlay is the best thing.
Overlay,
Would
yeah,
be- would
it's
be the best.
if we have the money to go in and
That's kind of what
overlay
they're
it.
doing at 99, taking
Yeah.
out those and root, yeah.
That there is full reconstruction.
That's full.
Yeah.
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 Brand new pavement, they're bringing it up in
Okay.
lifts, and they're replacing the subgrade and everything on it. The other thing that I wanted to add to this too, that changed from 2008 to 2018 is oil changed. The oil in the mix changed, and the mix changed design. When I started paving, you can go and look at, when I started here at the city in 2004, we did our own paving. We had $60,000 a year of paving that we stopped. That's all we had. But you can go look, and I can show you the streets that I paved back then that are better than some of the streets we've overlaid 6 years ago, because we went to recycled asphalt.
Feelers.
And they have to recycle, you gotta, yeah, so they have to use so much, everything they grind goes back in the plant, and so it's a different asphalt than we used to have, so it doesn't last as well either. So,
Cheaper.
and yeah, and it's something with the government where you gotta do it to comply of recycling resources.
Thank you.
And
Does
to
that make sense, Jamie?
Yeah,
Is that
thank you.
okay?
And just to add to that, I believe this was just talked about in the city council, in the city's recent budget, is that the city is going to do some crack sealing, correct? We are paying for some,
We're
we're gonna experiment with it.
gonna start this week, but the weather didn't cooperate. So
Yeah.
next nice week we have, we're gonna start doing, we're gonna do about a month for the crack sealing, rent the equipment, see how it goes, and then maybe if we like it, budget and purchase our own equipment.
When it comes to crack sealing, I'm not sure if many of you have been on Territorial. Driving on Territorial, you'll notice down towards the Methodist Church, there's that section of Territorial has all of the little black squiggles all over it, and then it stops. That is the difference between the crack seal and the not crack seal. And you can see the difference in the crack seal pavement compared to when you pass that point, what that road looks like now.
We've been doing a lot of tests like that and just watching it in-house and see what works the best. The biggest success that we had that we didn't catch early, and no one's onto this yet, Canby's ahead of it, is everyone follows NODOT spec, and it's a really hard oil that doesn't stretch, it's not flexible, so it breaks, so you gotta do more crack sealing. We actually changed our mix design to our standard to a softer mix, so it doesn't crack as bad. So everyone's starting to follow what Cammy's doing. So
I was gonna say, we have free option to do that. It's not mandated,
I-
a certain recipe.
I took it before council, and we adopted our public works design standard. I took the recommendation at the time for all of that. And we've actually, it's been impressive how longer our roads are lasting because of it. You go down and you drive around and you see the big crack down the middle of the roads where it's separating, that's because that, it doesn't flex. And so then the water gets in, takes out the base,
Right.
start having problems. And then the other thing that I've spec'd out is no cold joints. And you'll notice when we're paving, I close the streets, fire, police and everyone hate it, but I run 2 pavers. I don't let them go
Right.
down one and come back. I make them run 2 pavers so there's no cold joints. So we're getting way more, like 13th Avenue, has anyone drove it, going south 13th, you can't see a cold joint in it.
Yeah.
And so we're getting a lot more lifespan out of that. So we've been trying to get more bang for our buck and last longer because we've been keeping up, and I guess that's why we're here today.
That's right.
So
Good.
we're kind of at the end of our options of what we can do. Now we gotta start looking at different avenues. Yep.
Any other questions about that? Okay, so moving on, as far as other street maintenance info, when this all came up to this original street maintenance task force, this was not a new idea. It was a very young idea. There were a few cities in other states that had been adopting a street maintenance fee. But the most recent one that had done it just before Canby decided to look at doing one itself was the city of Milwaukee. And they had seen quite a bit of success in the infancy of that program. So the Canby program was crafted very similar to the Milwaukee one. And in this booklet, you will see the information originally about that Milwaukee program. The way the street maintenance fee was sorted out is it's calculated based on a trip generation formula. So every single house, apartment, trailer, business, depending on its size and square foot, generates a certain number of trips, and there are standard calculations to sort all this out. It's similar to the calculations that are being used to do to figure out the different things that are going on with our updated comprehensive plan and stuff. There's formulas that have been sorted out for years that are used in these things. And so when it was proposed to the street maintenance task force and what they chose to go forward with, yeah, so that's about what like Fred Meyer would pay. So as you can see up there, so a single family home is $5 a month, was chosen to be $5 a month. And we reference that. I reference that a lot when I talk to people about the street maintenance about the street maintenance fee, but the fee varies depending on the business. So for instance, if you're an apartment, apartments run about $3 or $3.34 a month. And how that works is all of those apartments are calculated, and then the owner of the apartment gets the bill, and then it's up to them to divide it out over their residents. For a 60,000 square foot supermarket, it would be about $125 a month. And for a large retailer, similar to like Fred Meyer, you're talking about $1,443 a month. Now, at the time, the street maintenance fee was given other options. One of the options was an $8.50 per single family home, as well as corresponding higher rates. But the task force at the time knew that implementing such a fee would be controversial within the city. And so it was the group's decision to go with the middle road. There was another one that would be $3.50 per single family household, but the information that was given to us essentially said that would allow you to keep the 100% streets at around 100%, but it would just slow that steady progress to a failed system overall. Down below there, that's covered up by the little box. Let me see if I can.
Drag it over to the right.
Oh yeah, there we go. If it's gonna try to line it. Actually, no. Oh my gosh, look at that! I can totally do that.
Yeah.
Yay! Okay.
You can find it in your bigger too. You can see her. Drag the corner.
No, that didn't do it.
Nope.
No, that didn't do it at all. Oh my gosh, now we've lost you. Just a second. Now I've dicked around and I've lost you.
I don't know where she went.
She just got disconnected.
So I have my
Where is she?
question,
In the Zoom
Zoom.
icon,
Oh,
the
she's
blue circle
right-
to the right.
right there.
Oh, there she is. Okay. Don't hit that X.
Yay, okay, now I can do this.
There we go. That's better.
Ta-da, okay, so now we'll start this presentation.
So I have a quick question then,
Uh-huh.
while you're trying to find that page again. Where I'm here, you got a 60,000 square foot supermarket, which I'm guessing is like a Rite Aid or a Taskforce. Where does the nonprofits and the churches fall in, like
Yeah.
community center and?
So this is, I was trying to get to that last bullet point, that's what I'm gonna bring up now.
Okay,
Is one of the questions that came up during the original discussion was, should churches and other nonprofits be, or groups that would normally have a tax, who are untaxed in the city, should they be allowed to get a waiver for the fee? And the decision of the group was no. And the reason being is that all of those individuals are still using the street system. And if we are expecting the residents, businesses and such to pay for this, they're using the streets, then it would be only fair for all of those other people, such as the Cami Kiwanis thrift store, and those to pay into the system as well. Along those lines, one of the questions was, well, what if the person doesn't own a car? What if it's an elderly person? They don't have a car, or they're on a fixed income. Should they get a waiver? Should they get a fee reduction? And the group decided that would not, that no on that as well. And the reason being is that those individuals, even though they might not have a car, have people that are coming into the city that are taking them where they need to go, or the buses are taking them where they need to go. And so those people are still passively using the streets network. And if you provided carve-outs for all these different groups, the viability of the program would be undermined. And in order to do the same amount of work, you would then have to make those people who are the businesses, the individuals who own homes or apartments, would then essentially have to pay even more to supplement what those individuals weren't paying. Another thing that I will just throw in here, and this was very interesting thing that I've figured out, is you all are probably familiar with the fact that OLCC is planning to build a warehouse, their main distribution warehouse in the city of Camden. If this fee, it was a tax, or if districts that don't normally get taxed would be waived from that fee, they would be able to build that building in the industrial park and not pay a cent towards the wear and tear that they are putting on the roads.
Because they're not in city limits there.
So will they actually pay it, because they're not in city limits?
Well, they might not pay it right now.
It would be within the city.
Oh, yes, because they have to get annexed in.
Yeah, it's in the.
It will.
It's in
Okay.
the current city.
Yeah.
Oh, it is?
Yes,
Okay,
so it is in the city limits. Even if it was annexed in, it would become part of the city limits.
okay.
And so the only way that the city would be able to get any money from them to fund the streets is going to only solely be through the street maintenance fee.
So I have a question, because this really stands out, because let me just tell you, as you're all aware, 60,000 square foot supermarket is a very large facility.
Yes,
So what is the difference between that and large retailer? Because there's a lot of money difference there.
well, so large retailer, that's essentially that is from this book originally,
Okay,
and that is Fred Meyer. So because that store is,
Columbia now.
but they're a wholesaler mainly. You can't, that's not considered a retailer.
oh no, well, Columbia, well, see, so Columbia being a warehouse,
We have theirs.
it's based on trip generation. So because they're a warehouse, there is a certain formula that they would have to follow. to
So
say
is that,
this
so
Jamie
large
got-
retailers,
Jamie got all of that information, like what Columbia was paying, I have on, like,
yeah.
we've saved it on the.
I mean, is that what we're talking about, who falls under a large retailer?
This is just,
Because I mean, there's not very many large
No, they're
retailers.
talking,
in
like
Canada.
this specifically is Fred Meyer, but like,
Okay.
let's say Columbia, who's warehouse and distribution, they may pay more than that. I can't remember. what
Is
it
Fred Meyer's larger than 60,000 square feet?
Yeah,
Yeah.
oh, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Because I know Taskforce is
You
about
know what?
35.
Yours is, do you know what
40
you?
at the
pay?
most.
I don't know what ours is. I
So
think
that's
we
up to
looked,
60, I'm guessing.
Okay.
I'm guessing.
Yeah,
It's all
that's
based on
perfect.
trips.
it's all based on the
And maybe
trips.
Safeway would fall under that, but Safeway's about the same size as Taskforce.
And these numbers here are more or less a generalization to show you that people pay
Yes.
into the system based on how much
Okay.
use of the
Sure.
system that they utilize essentially.
And businesses, what do small businesses pay? Do we have any idea? I mean, how does that define?
It would need to be pulled up by,
You know what?
it would need to be pulled up
I
by
have no
building.
idea.
These are just examples, right?
Right,
Correct.
but,
We
and
can-
it's,
we can look and
Teresa,
find out what
it's
you-
about how your business is classified with like the NAICS code, I think. And so it's
Okay.
how
Okay.
your business would be classified. So if it was wholesale or retail or however that
Uh-huh.
is classified, then that's how it's determined.
And I don't, how am I mean, just as a business owner, how am I paying this?
So is
In your sewer,
City
So,
can't be
so
built.
how it's paid is similar to a
Or her
park.
business is on a
she doesn't have
highway.
a sewer bill, you might not be paying,
I don't think I am.
you might not. be.
But
You're off
would
the
this
task
be,
force.
Yeah, you're right.
well, and would this be coming under, when I get my, property taxes? Would
No,
it
it
come
comes
through?
with a sewer bill.
No, it's city, it can't be built.
Yeah, I don't have
There's
city.
park maintenance fee and a
I
city
have,
maintenance fee.
can be utilities.
Sewer.
So anybody
Okay.
on a well is
Oh,
not
it might
paying
be.
No, we have a well and a
So you-
septic.
it.
Yeah, so you
That's
are, you,
what it is.
so essentially, I did not realize this, but because you're not annexed to the city, you don't pay these fees.
She's
I
annexed,
am in
She
it.
is, she's
We're
on
on
a septic.
then
but she's
We're
not,
city.
she's not on city sewer though.
Uh-uh.
Yeah, but still, then,
So you see,
Perhaps
there's a
you've gotten
mishap there
yourself in trouble.
somewhere.
well, there's
I
going to
mean, this
be,
is a real question to,
yes, and there could be those,
uh-oh,
there could be
there's
those,
a hole.
You
there
are,
could be a few holes.
no, you're on sewer.
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
Yes, the
So-
grinder pump is through the shop,
The shop's on city sewer.
So
but
here's.
I don't
But
get,
you don't get a sewer bill.
So so what I'd like to do is get us back on track here.
and we're just
This
gonna
is
go
a-
off to the next.
Well, I think we're
Well-
on track, we're just trying to figure out who's paying what, and then like,
Exactly.
what does
I
say,
can look that
Quinn's
up.
pay, or.
Yeah, but so here's the deal, we could sit here for 6 hours.
It's okay, it's okay, we
And,
can do it
and
later.
break down.
We have all that if you need. it. I can
So
bring it up.
if
okay.
if you will let me talk about how the various businesses get charged for this. The way it is set up in the city code is the fee is charged to the landowner. So in the case of a retail building, if those retailers, so for instance, Megan, in your situation, you are one of several renters in a building. The landowner is getting a bill for sewer,
Yeah.
park maintenance, street maintenance.
Mhm.
They are paying the bill, but they are then passing that cost on to the individual businesses. And how they should be doing that is based on the square footage of that business in the total building. How the landowner is doing that is up to them. Now, if it's a business that is in a building that they own, then that business owner is seeing the bill that has all of those things on it. Or is how it should be.
Mhm.
I think in your case, this is a one-off. Because your business is in a very different sort of
It's
situation.
very different.
But compared to most of the other businesses in the city and the downtown core and such, and this is something that would essentially come from an audit of the system, which has never been done,
I pay enough fees.
so.
Like the Canby Fire, we looked up, it was like $150 a month, I think.
Ooh.
So it kind of
Yeah.
fit in.
Yes, but the thing
So-
about Canby Fire is just last year, they got the entire front of their
And they're hard on roads.
building paved,
Absolutely,
and that pavement came from this program, so.
yeah, I get that.
So does that kind of answer that
I
question?
think so. Denise.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I know that there are people that don't like it.
I can show
I
you.
know that there are people that think that there should be carve outs for individuals. But when the street maintenance fee originally met, and it was a consensus of the group, that there should be no carve outs, that people are using the system, everybody should be paying. Except for a few people that we have carved out.
Well, you're just gonna, we'll keep going on here.
So is there any other questions about that? Okay.
So it's a real question.
So, the funding from the street maintenance fee is used specifically for maintenance from curb to curb and down. So street maintenance fee money is not used for sidewalks or signs or traffic calming or anything like that. As one of the original members of the street maintenance fee task force and being involved with the city as long as I have, I work with Jerry to ensure that that happens. That the amount of money that is spent on paving and gravel and paint of stripes and such or potholes is greater than the amount that is collected through the street maintenance fee, essentially.
Does that make sense to you guys? So when we pave, do any type of overlays, it triggers ADA improvements, so we have to redo all the ramps.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so-
that's the next thing, just
Okay.
bear with me for a minute. So when the street maintenance fee task force met, they were given essentially two things. One, create a street maintenance fee, and two, should we create a local gas tax? And so it was decided to create a local gas tax along with the street maintenance fee of 3 cents per gallon. So if you purchase your gas in the city of Canby, 3 cents of every gallon goes towards the city. If you purchase your gas from Lone Elder store, you do that, they do not charge that fee. It's only gas stations within the city limits, okay? That fee has not ever been adjusted either. That fee has been the same since its inception in 2008. And Jerry, you can go ahead now. and talk
Well,
about
and that, to talk about that, that was a heated thing for our local, we had all local gas stations, mom and pops, and so they took that as like real tough.
They
And
don't
that-
make much money anyway.
And that's something we need to look into, because now we got bigger gas stations coming in and all that, and we have,
Well, you
reasonable
also have
choice.
self-service now that we never used to have, so where does all that play into it?
yeah, well,
Gas station.
Well, the
we still
city-
get our portion.
Okay.
The
Yeah.
city still gets its 3 cents.
Yep.
Regardless of whether the person is pumping it or
It's all
somebody else.
So the way that the original task force Jason was on set it up, it's between the curbs only. So when somewhere along the line, they came along and said, if you do any pavement, you gotta do ADA improvements. So we could not pay for any concrete sidewalks, the yellow domes we put in for the handicapped people. So they use the gas tax money for that. And any other streets funds that come in, we use it for that. And so to give you an idea how much that costs, on $1 million of paving, it's usually around $150,000 of ADA improvements, what we do. So we gotta come up with an extra 150,000 on top of the,
How do they mandate that money? I mean, so like, just for instance, Fred Meyer gas station. They know however many gallons and then boom, times 3 cents. Who's giving, where's that money coming from?
They're upping it 3 cents a gallon, we're paying it.
No, we are paying it, but who's paying it to the city?
Well, because they are a gas station in the city, it is known that they have to pay. They pay a certain amount of taxes out, and Canby gets, however they end up paying all that out, Canby gets its 3 cent share.
Yep.
So there's traditionally 2 different ways that calculation is done.
Yeah, that's what I want
It's
to know.
collected by ODOT and remitted to the city.
Okay,
Some cities have the means to collect it directly from the stations. So more are going to the ODOT model than the,
so one area, one place.
so I'm not sure what
Yeah,
can be.
just say how do we collect.
And we can, and that is something that we can add to the list to look into. Here, oh, I got my pen over
I
here.
mean, that's a lot of
You need a
accounting.
parking lot
you know,
list,
if you
Jason.
have every gas station paying, you know,
Hotel taxes are done similar.
similar.
Okay, so question is, how does Canby get its gas tax
Do you,
money?
I'm pretty sure it's ODOT, but we need to follow up on
I
that.
think so.
Yeah, that's my impression.
I see the revenue coming in the budget it's from state.
Which could be.
Just like the liquor store and the cigarette tax and all that, yeah.
But we'll look, SDOT. Okay.
So the other thing is so originally, if you remember back, for those who've lived here long enough, Canby Utility billed on behalf of the city of Canby its sewer fee. So when you got your Canby utility bill, there was a sewer fee on there, and then that sewer fee was then, what they collected in sewer fee was then given to the city of Canby for the sewer. When the city of Canby moved forward with putting in the street maintenance fee, Canby Utilities said, we will not add that fee. We will no longer, we will collect the sewer fee, but we will not collect any other fees for the city of Canby. So that triggered the city creating its own billing department and billing software as such. So a portion of, hello there.
Just in time.
Oh my gosh, really? You
I
did come back?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That guilt feeling, huh?
So we're just going through the history of how we got to a street maintenance fee. And so, because the city then had to bill for the street maintenance fee, they decided, well, we might as well just bill for sewer as well. So a portion of the money generated for the street maintenance fee does go to cover some of the billing activities for the fee. Those are the only, so though, that is the only non-street related thing.
I was gonna say, that doesn't sound like curb to curb.
No, it isn't, but.
But they're desks down the street.
Correct. But, you know, so that was part of the implementation of the fee as well. So the recommendations, so there were some recommendations that were made by that street maintenance fee task force. And these are a couple of them. One was to retain the task force and have them meet every 5 years to review the progress of the program. That recommendation was denied by the council at the time. And then there was also a recommendation to implement a street cutting fee. So one of the concerns of many of the people on the task force was that when a new, when we have spent all this money to make the street nice and beautiful, it sucks to have someone come in and then cut it open in the next month or two or a year later and then mess up essentially that street, because the patch usually never is.
And it happens all the time.
Correct. And so the street maintenance fee task force said there should be some sort of fee that is charged to any utility or any developer that is going to cut into a street within a certain period of time after the street is done. So if the streets are going to be done under the program, all the utilities need to be warned that next year or in the next so many years, this street's going to be done. So if you've got to do any cutting or do any utility work, you get in there and do it now before we do this. Otherwise, we're going to charge you. And the city council at the time decided that was too onerous on the utility companies and on the developers, and that was denied as well. But the fee was adopted by, the fee and the gas tax were adopted, and that's that. Any questions about any of that?
So currently you don't have that.
We do not have
we do
that.
not. We haven't.
No.
we have
Well,
no
we're
street-
fixing that one.
Well, we can,
Different council now.
yeah, we can get to that, under at the very
I would
end.
Yeah.
love a street cutting moratorium.
Seriously.
Yeah, I would like that a lot.
So maybe I missed it. When was the last time that this task force met? What year?
In 2007.
So it's been way too long, right?
Yeah,
So
so
this-
15 years, 17 years.
This, yeah, I think this has to happen at least once everything gets resolved and the committee makes a decision or whatever. You still should have a follow-up every 6 months or once a year.
Well, and we'll get
I
to
mean, I
that
know
as
you're
we.
going to, but
But that seems, honestly, 6 months to a year sounds like a little too much, but I'm thinking at least every couple of years.
Yeah,
No
I
more than
was-
5, no more than 5,
So
definitely not 15.
I'm going to let the cat out of the bag a little, and I am trying my best. Clearly, I am a fan of this program. And so I am doing my best not to influence the group too much. But it would be, I personally feel that it would be good that every 5 years, this group get together
that long.
and review,
Oh, that's what it
because,
said in
and-
the original
well,
recommendations.
I don't know, Jason, maybe once we get through all this and get that done.
yeah,
maybe-
we'll talk about
Maybe
that.
we do a separate meeting when this is complete and get this group back together for a street cutting or moratorium.
Well, there you go. Well,
I don't know.
we'll see what comes of all that.
Maybe
We
we'll get
can-
that. in.
we can talk about various recommendations, because the other thing I will just point out here is this body is not, this body is a recommending body. So This group is gonna come up with recommendations that it will make to the city council on behalf of the group. And then the city council ultimately will decide whether to act upon those recommendations or not. So that's why, essentially it will, Council President Hensley and I will be part of that final discussion when whatever comes up from this group. But ultimately, if the council, similar to back in the day when there were other recommendations the council decided not to take, it is entirely up to them. My hope is that they will listen to this group. I suspect because they've had this group come together, they will. It just depends on how they're feeling that night.
Well, I hope they will, because too many times we've been involved in these kind of meetings and then we're excused. The group is dispersed and excused and they've gone completely opposite of everything, all the recommendations that have been put forth.
So between he and I,
I'm
and
hoping.
the one you live with, there's half the council, so.
There you go.
We're good.
So now we're gonna go ahead and get into some information about the street maintenance fee in action. And what I'll do is, we're coming up on an hour, so I figure once we get through this body of stuff, I'm gonna check in with the group and see how people are feeling before we go into the next section. Does that work for everybody? Okay, so street maintenance fee in action. As of 2018, the city's current CPI is at 75%. So over the course of essentially a decade, the city was able, with the current street maintenance fee, to move the needle on its CPI. Because if you remember in the earlier slide, it was down down as low as 59%. So it went essentially from fair up to good, which is great. So this shows that the street maintenance fee is doing its work. Now, as I said before, up to 2018, there was not as much development as we have seen in the last 5 to 6 years. So my suspicion is that if a similar program was run today, this street system might actually be a bit higher than this. But it would be supplemented by the fact that there are several miles of streets that have been added in the last few years that are at 100% or greater. So it's essentially diluting the average of the rest of the street system, which is a bit old, if that makes sense. But the key is that it is in fact working. And if you look at this map, and it's really hard to see, but if you look at the front of your book, you will see here all of the different years that paving was done through. Now, year 2007 was sort of the base year because it wasn't until 2008 that the fee was implemented. But you will see on this map all of the different streets and the various years that have been updated since the fee was created. Now, what I will say is, and we will get into this in the future slide, if you look at all of these pieces and you actually figured out the linear feet, you will notice that each year less and less is getting done. And we will get into that in a future slide. Now, what isn't in here is year 2023. And so this is a hand-drawn map by Gary of the various streets that were done in 2023. And you'll see one of the big ones was this section here of North Redwood Street, which was taken over by the city from the county. And so the city is working on those roads.
That's just over here, right?
North and South Redwood, you can see
Okay.
the yellow, we did
Yeah.
half of that one and then. So, yeah.
What's this little?
But did you actually, this
I
is
do.
for
You
2000,
testing your
That's
memory
the-
there?
like you paid it
That's the-
last year?
What's
Yes.
Like
Well, so if
Redwood
you-
that I just drove on?
Yeah, so if
Part of
you
part of
go
it.
from the railroad track
It's a territorial.
up to 13th, you're on, no, not on Territorial, on North Redwood Street. Sorry, I may have misspoke.
Well, territorial.
Just the 13th, and then it turns to crap right by my house, yeah.
Yes, so if
Typical.
you're on the section that's closest to the railroad tracks,
Uh-huh.
that is beautiful.
That's
Because
city.
that's what was paved in 2023.
Do we own all of Redwood now? Okay, so no more county, half and half, okay,
So are you familiar with the whole county, city, street thing?
that's what happened, that's part of.
Do
Oh,
you-
it used to be half county, half city. I know that, right?
Yes, and then also, well, yes, there was a part of it that was owned by the city, most of it was owned by the county. And the city has slowly been bringing in those county streets as the county is willing to give us money to do so. Because they would love for us to take the streets over without giving us any money to help cover the cost of fixing them.
Yeah.
But the city fights them, and every time they throw us a bone, we then pick up a little bit more of the streets. The other thing that's happening over on North Redwood Street, as it is in other areas, is the city waits for the half street improvements as subdivisions go in. So when the subdivision goes in, they're responsible for doing the half street improvement, which is adding the sidewalk and fixing the road. And then once there's enough of those done in a section of street, then the city will come in and repave all of it to make it all even. That way, it's not being done in little fits and starts and chunks and stuff. So that's why it only goes to about 13th down here, right? Is it 13th?
Yeah, and we're gonna do the other half this year, or the rest of it this way will be completed this year, so this year, if it gets approved tomorrow night, Wednesday.
Yeah. So that's why some of those streets are so weird. It's because, and some of them were only taken over by the city within the last 4 or 5 years. And then trying to work those into also making sure that we're keeping good streets good is all part of the program. And I think in this book, you have the long range projections of what's going to be
Yep.
paid. That is also in this book as well.
We're trying to follow it, but we're kind of, as he'll tell you here shortly, we're kind of falling behind, so
Yes.
following this is difficult with money we have.
Mhm.
So now the street maintenance fee today. As I've said several times, the fee has never been adjusted since the program's inception in 2008. And so with inflation over the last 16 years or so, the $5 that is being charged per single family household is not $5 anymore. Also, the funds from state and federal sources continue to go down. As cars become more fuel efficient or electric cars become more prevalent, there is less gas tax that's created. And so that continues to eat into the funding sources that the city has for its streets. Plus, the city, as you know, with its recent development boom, has added in a fair amount of mileage in new streets into the city. As such, all of those streets are going to they're all aging at the same rate. And so at year whatever, when it gets to a certain grade, there are going to be a lot of city streets that are going to need a slurry seal or crack sealing or whatever. And so trying to prepare for that is becoming a challenge for the city because of this funding source not keeping pace with inflation. As such, the city council has reconvened this group to review this information and have a discussion on what the city should do moving forward. Any questions on that?
So with inflation over the past 16 years, the $5 is not $5 anymore.
I'm going to show you what that is next.
Okay.
Okay, so at this point in time, based on these numbers, and Jerry can speak to this, Jerry, if you'd like to speak to this slide.
Yeah, up to 2011, we just, with the amount of money we had coming in, the 700,000, roughly 670,000 coming in, that's what we received. We paved 3 miles of road here, you know, and you watch it now how it's declined, and it's because of inflation and fuel prices. When fuel prices are high, we do less paving. It's all based off oil, and you'll see some gaps in there where we didn't do much paving, like 15, where we did very, very little, and then 2020. What we've been doing now is taking a year off paving so that we get the prices up, so we go out and do $1 million or so, $1.2 million worth of paving, so we get better prices. So.
And we didn't pay to 23, right?
We took it 23 off too, because we just $700,000 just wasn't getting us hardly any work done. So you can just see how it's fallen off. And I apologize if this only goes to 21. This is when we were going to bring this presentation. Jamie and I worked on it a long time ago, and then everything hit. You know, COVID, the fires, all the stuff. So we're bringing this to you now because we had a fresh index done and we were bringing it now. We're just kind of forward. We didn't want to take the time to do another survey quite yet until we talked to this group.
But
So
you know what,
that'll
you
be
know what
something.
you did in 2022? Do you recall?
How much we did in 2022? 2022, I can find out.
That's okay.
I can
How,
look it
how
up.
much are you scheduled to do this year?
It's like 1.1 miles.
So there you go.
It's simple. It's the rest of Redwood, that section of territorial that's bad, and then in Pacific Pride where that road's blowing up again on Second Avenue by McDonald's. That's what we're doing this year.
What's
And
the
then-
cost of that?
1.1.
1.1's getting you a little over a mile.
Now it's, yes,
I mean,
Yep.
in line, basically.
Yep. It's pretty easy math, really, depending, but only fuel prices go up, it's a little less. They go down a little more. And throwing the alleys in there helped with all that. The bigger the project, the better. So get better prices. The cost of asphalt, is $50 a ton to go buy it. And Eagle Elsner has the batch plant. They don't want anyone to work here in Canby, so we get good prices. And they put it down for like a $70 a ton. So we get good prices, but the price goes up with oil prices and inflation and equipment costs and all that stuff.
Labor.
Traffic control, labor, all that. So yeah, pretty easy math though.
So that's what we're currently, so that's how we have trended. And granted, this does not go back to 2008. If you were to go back to 2008, go further back past 2011, the miles that we were paving was even more.
Yeah.
So now we're gonna look at the actual fee itself. So if back in 2009, when the street maintenance fee was created, if back then it hadn't been tied to an inflationary index, the current fee per household would be about $7.90 a month. Okay? Now, if we look at that as far as what that $5 is worth today, back in 2001, it was sitting at about $3.10. With the inflation from 2001 to the current inflation rate today, that $5 is essentially worth $2.70. So the problem that the city faces, and this task force faces, is that they are almost, this group is almost right back to where the previous group started 16 years ago, with the fact that the city is not generating enough funds to keep its streets reasonable. And how are we going to go ahead and deal with that? Now,
Do you know what the number would be at 790? Like.
yes, so that's on the next slide.
Sorry.
So there's been some projections done, and this goes to 2001. But you'll notice here on the bottom line, this is the amount collected. And you can see here up to 2020 to 2001, this is when we started to have an increase in population and businesses coming into the city. If that inflationary mechanism had continued, the city would have an extra $1.3 million to put towards paving projects today. Well, actually in 2021. So if you map that out even further, it would probably be close to, it probably would be a bit under $2 million more per year to put towards street paving projects.
So 2 miles.
2 miles.
Yes.
Still isn't much.
It's not much, but every bit helps, right? So, any questions about those numbers?
Well, it wouldn't have been per year, right? Because the inflation's not going up in a constant rate. So that it wouldn't have been 1.3 a year.
Well, no, yes, so essentially this gap here is 1.3, so each year this gap grew more and more and more.
Total 1.3.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
really,
We would have to pave 2 more miles of road.
yeah,
Thank you. Understood.
so now we come to the task of the task force.
Fireball.
Correct. So there's essentially 2 questions. These are the 2 questions that have been batted around by the city council. One is, does this task force recommend that the street maintenance fee be increased annually. Somehow tied to some sort of funding mechanism or not, and does this task force recommend an increase to catch up for lost revenue? So we're gonna start with the first question. At this point in time, we're gonna run through these slides, because now we are at 7 o'clock. So I just wanna check in with everybody to see if we're in a good, if everybody's okay, are you good with continuing for a little bit longer? Okay.
We're
So,
supposed to go till at least 8, right?
yeah, I like to just check in
Yeah,
at
6 to 8.
the hour mark. So, question 1, do we recommend the street maintenance fee be increased annually? If the answer of this group is no, then we will continue with the status quo, and the street conditions will continue to deteriorate and eventually go down into the CPI will be in the single digits. If the answer is yes, then how does this group want to essentially skin that cat? Do you want to set the increase at a particular amount each year? Would you recommend that it be tied to an inflationary mechanism, which could range anywhere from 2% to 14% based on various metrics and data from, you know, the feds? Do you want to choose a fixed percentage annually of 3, 4, 6, whatever percentage? Or do you want the fee increased based on a paving condition target? And so for that, I think, Jerry, you will be the better one to explain this slide.
It's kind of, this was, I think, in the book too. They put this out so that we could just go up and look at what money does here. So right now, we're getting 670,000 at $5 just off that deal. So as Jason says, it's gonna minus 3 points after 5 years. We're gonna start losing if we stay where we're at now. Just to get up and maintain a 75 right now is the yellow. That makes sense. To, yeah, $2.46.
What inflation says though, right?
It is,
Well, yeah, right,
it's all relevant.
7.90.
And so,
Yeah.
and then if you wanna get up to the industry standard, which you gotta pay the money, $13.43. And that's what I think we did. I have it somewhere. The last time we went and looked at other cities, and I think the 13 is like, I think Westland is up around there with their street maintenance fee. And so we looked at a lot of other cities, and you got like Malala that doesn't have one. You can drive their roads and see. They're like their example of what we would look like if we wouldn't have done the maintenance fee. You go drive over there, but you go to Westland, they're doing like concrete roads that last. They're doing all kinds of stuff. Eileen, you might know more about that, but so more money, better roads. So this is, I don't know what I can really explain on this. It's just all about money. And if this gives you guys kind of an idea.
Well, I guess my question would be to go, let's go backwards.
Okay,
How many miles do you think you need to pave every year? And then you can go back from there. Do you think you
It's-
could, I mean, 4 miles a year?
I want to pave the whole city
Okay,
next
so
year.
then you gotta
but
go, then you're gonna have to, then the whole top line needs to be.
I'm not
Well-
a taxpayer here though.
Well, so
You
here's,
guys are.
But
here is-
Yeah.
but I don't think taxpayers want to see crappy
Nope, they don't.
roads.
here's what I
Car
will,
maintenance.
No, they don't wanna pay for them either, that's the hard
I
part.
understand
If you
that.
raise it to $7.46,
You're gonna squeal,
it'll stay, it's gonna stay where we're at.
but, but reality is.
Water rates going up.
well, so before, I just wanna throw a couple of things out there to think about. The situation that this group is very similar to the situation that the previous group was in. And that is why they chose a Midland Road, is because it is possible that if the citizens of the city, so there are folks that say that this is a tax in sheep's clothing, which essentially it is. If people got fired up enough about this fee, they could essentially do a signature campaign and force this to a vote. Or they could pressure the city council to put it towards vote of the citizens to create it as a tax. as you now have seen, and this was the dilemma that the original task force faced, if this goes away, you now see what the problem is. That the streets will degrade exponentially over a period of time. And by the time citizens are fired up enough about it to realize what happened, essentially, it would probably be too late. So, as you talk about how much you want to increase this fee, just keep that in mind.
Are the calculations equal to the business's percentage? So like say if you went to 9 points, that's 4 times.
Correct,
the
yes.
equivalent. Is that?
So the
same
businesses would
multiplier?
see, they would see their increase even more.
Yeah. That's why we wanted to invite
That's a
you, so
good
you can
point.
see.
Can we look at what the businesses, like Fred Meyer, for example, my business doesn't bring it near the traffic that Fred Meyer brings in a day. I mean, there's thousands, they're not charged per
Mhm.
visit. I'm charged based on how many trucks and employees I have.
So I think,
Fred Meyer has as many employees as I have
Mhm.
and thousands of customers.
so where we're at with this,
Retail spaces there though, too, or the other retail spaces getting charged also.
well, yes, so it's dependent upon the landowner. We have to,
But
that's.
still, it's a calculation.
Correct.
Total lot.
So what I will say is this, we're a little bit ahead of where I thought we would be. I was expecting more questions and stuff. So what my recommendation would be for this group is to look at these various options that you have before you. And then say, these are the ones that we would like to see more data on. And then what can happen is the city staff will go back and say, well, if you wanna see, if this looks like a potential option. So if we go back to this slide here, and you say, a set amount really makes no sense, take that off the list. A fixed percentage, that makes no sense, take it off the list. But let's look at how an inflationary, like an inflation percentage or the paving condition index percentage looks and how that figures into various models. Then that gives the city some direction as to how to model that out for this group for its next meeting.
Well, I think for one thing, my opinion is $5 needs to be raised.
Okay,
And I would think that the inflation percentage should take a part in that, as everything has gone up. Your costs have gone up, labor goes up. How do you keep up if you do not raise it?
And
The
that's
average
what,
person cost of living raise is not that much.
No, I know.
I mean, if you work for the
Groceries are
city or something, you're
3%.
pretty much guaranteed a certain percentage of a raise every year. That's not guaranteed in a job that you have though.
parks,
We're talking
the
from that.
parks fee is inflation based, and it's up to what, it was $5, I think it's up to around 7 now. It's
I don't know, I don't.
6 something, 6, it goes up, it's on a,
It's on the sewer bills.
If we're gonna stay ahead of it
See it.
instead of falling behind like we have.
Yeah.
Then inflation has to come into it.
now, there's the other question, so this is question one, how do you think there should be? So I guess the first primary question is, this is what I'm getting from the group, that there really needs to be some sort of adjustment to the fee as it stands. Is that a safe assumption of this group?
I agree.
Okay. So,
But how we get there is the question.
correct, and so what we can do is, of these four options, which are the ones that you would like to see more data on as far as what that would look like moving forward?
Is there consideration in raising the gas tax?
That is on that's on another slide.
Well, that would have a bearing on, I mean, if we want to get to,
Is there
if we
any,
wanted to get to 1 million, how many gallons of gas are sold in Canby per year? At 3 cents?
Yeah.
Versus 5 cents, I mean, how
How much are they contributing per year?
how much are they contributing? And the other question is, I mean, I don't fill up in Canby myself, I mean, I do, but I probably buy more gas outside of Canby than in Canby. Personally. How many people are coming through town filling up that you could capitalize on their fuel
Well,
purchase?
right, I mean,
Their
we've got the next 3 weekends, we have the Renaissance Fair, people, they're gonna,
everyone's
they're gonna
filling up.
feel out there.
That would be more of a,
so.
That's
a
what's-
less of a burden on the residents?
Yeah.
Yes.
We're still
that's-
paying it if we're going up here.
10.5%.
And that was why the original street maintenance fee task force recommended both a fee and a gas tax. Was the gas tax was meant to capture revenue from those people who were just driving through the city
What that would look
and
like.
using the streets more passively.
So I guess
That's gonna
that's
get us to
what would
least-
another 2 cents do to
Okay.
the gap? I mean, what is
Yeah.
2 cents?
In my opinion, I
Add
think
to.
the way we have to approach this is from the top down scenario. For example, paving conditions are, Jerry, what do we need to get all the roads paved? What is your need? We're approaching this with the Band-Aid, instead of throwing a Band-Aid, let's fix it. What's the total budget? What does that look like? From top down approach, what's the whole entire budget look like? Once we identify that, then how do we get there? How do we pay for it? And I think that's then when we start making tough decisions on how we get there. But to look at this and say, oh, we have to increase it by a certain percent every year, I don't think that's the right approach. I think we have to look at this from a holistic standpoint. What's the total cost going to be to fix all the roads? Because once we fix them once, we're not gonna have to keep doing it every year after that, right? This is the one and done type of thing.
Well,
That's a scenario we hear.
And so,
That's a, that
so
was,
to that
Go ahead.
respect,
go ahead.
and this is where we get to, this slide. So as I had mentioned, back when the street maintenance fee task force, the street maintenance task force originally met, they were essentially said, if you charge, and I can't remember if it's in here, or if I'm remembering that, maybe I dreamed it up. If
Got it
you
right here.
charge a monthly fee per household of like $15 a month, and you charge that for X number of years, you will be able to get the entire street system up to 100%, and then drop the fee down to the $5 per household. And that will maintain the street system indefinitely. Now, we know that that is not the case, because in that original recommendation, there was no recommendations tied to an inflationary mechanism. But this same sort of scenario runs true, and this is what the second question is do we charge a fee to play catch up for what we have lost by not having the fee tied to inflation? So do we raise the fee all in one shot to cover that lost income? Do we, instead of doing an inflationary mechanism of 3 to 4% annually, we figure on that, but then for the next 5 to 7 years, you charge an additional 10%? And you increase essentially 13% each year over the course of so many years, and that provides you with a catch-up revenue, and then after that period of time, the fee drops back down to whatever it would be. There wouldn't be those huge fluctuations. Similar to what Canby Utility is doing right now, where for the next several years, they're going to be increasing rates at a higher rate to build up funds for the water treatment plant. And then once the revenue is generated from that, those increases will not be as high, because they'll have the money for the treatment plant, and then it will be more of a maintenance thing.
So,
I'm sorry,
and I was showing Daniel on, in
Go ahead,
this,
Jerry.
well, in this, if you go to the blue, there's not really good page numbers, but if you go to this,
Go to the blue page,
Blue.
this is page 5.
and it tells all these scenarios in here, it's a lot to go over. But,
It was 15.2 million.
that's what, and that was in 22, so, I mean, it has that information, so, I mean, I don't know what we wanna do
We
with
need
that.
almost 5 million just the first year alone.
Yeah.
So I think those are the numbers that we have to start looking for. Maybe it's a combination of the gas tax. Is there other money that we can tap into
Well,
from a budgetary standpoint that's not being
I
used?
wanted to talk about that a little bit, because there's a lot of projects too that aren't included in this that we're doing. You know, like 10th Avenue, we got budgeted that we're gonna redo 10th Avenue. We're South Ivy Street, we made a deal with the county, that whole thing's coming in and gonna be brand new. So we're getting a lot of other stuff, and we're applying for federal fund exchange money. We get $700,000 a year from them coming in to go towards street projects and stuff. So there is other stuff we're doing.
Yes, but I
But
think,
those different projects that we still need to do
Yeah.
projects though. We can't do
Yeah,
different
and so
maintenance.
we have 53 centerline miles, so some of these are getting done with other projects, but we're adding roads as fast as we can, like Walnut Street's getting ready to go next year. And so we're gonna put that in, we're using a lot of SDCs and street reserves to build that.
I was gonna ask you about Walnut Street connecting into
Well,
industrial area.
yeah,
That house gonna go away,
the what?
that house?
It's
Is that what you're talking about?
It's not there.
Yeah,
You know, the little house, you know, this to stub back in from,
it's gonna go in at
it
the
is
spinning wheel and then come up at the.
oh, that way, I'm
property.
talking about
The little brown house at the intersection by,
by the cemetery.
yeah, no, those folks, that would happen when those folks sell that property.
But,
That's important.
and those businesses have been paying fee and lieu and all that, so, you know, there is help, other stuff, but
Yeah.
we have other minimal revenues. on
So
this.
what's the time frame on that, coming out by the spinning wheel?
We'll start
the other
construction a year from now.
Okay, so it's got 3 years maybe?
Yeah,
Before
you'll
that's
be,
done?
try, hopefully, under 3.
Well,
Yeah.
And the dilemma with that, which plays into this, is that that street is being
We're gonna have to maintain
built by
it.
a lot of other funding sources that aren't normally there. And when that street is done, now that street becomes another burden on what limited sources we have. So,
Is that county at all?
no,
No.
it'll be.
That'll put us up around, like, probably 115 miles of road at that point, when that's all
Total in
built.
Camp?
And so there are other funding mechanisms within the city in order to do various street maintenance projects. But even that now coupled with what we get through the street maintenance fee, it still is not enough to move that needle. The street maintenance fee was originally the way that the city was gonna move that needle, and now it is unable to do that.
Do we know what the total amount of pavement is? That's what's critical mass right now, like what's absolutely critical.
Everything that's in that failure rate, and we're doing, and there's still stuff in that, so that's
How
what
many
we,
miles is that?
Is it
We're
this
gonna-
four, very four,
yeah,
slice of the pie?
and we're gonna, 13.8%.
13.8.
So
15%.
How many miles does that represent?
what's
15% of
109, yeah,
109 miles.
109, so 15% of 109. You good at math? You good at math?
17.
17 miles. And we're doing
That's 17
a mile a year now, and that's why we're starting to go, like what Jason's saying, it's been good till now we're starting to go down that cliff.
So that's 17 million just there alone, that's not even. It's 17.
Well, the 15 quoted here plus inflation is close to 17, right? I'm just like.
The bigger the project too, the more you get done. And I always try, if fuel prices are through the roof, like you'll see where some of these gaps, I didn't pay because it just wasn't worth it. Wait till it goes down next year and do double, and you'll get triple the work done.
Like it probably goes down next year.
Let's
We'll
hope
have to
so.
give a different president.
No,
Are
this
we
is
allowed
a-
to charge, like, during the rodeo or Plaquemines County Fair, can we charge a little extra for every ticket purchase that we pay for maintenance?
I don't,
That would be the county commissioners that would have to probably be involved.
could the city charge a fee towards events
Renaissance Fair.
that
That's a
per
good-
ticket that
Well, it's a
will?
charge.
It's a good point, though.
That's a good
It is a
question,
good
but
question.
the BCC, yeah, the
It's in-
BCC would have
it's
to
in our
agree to
city.
it.
But
We
they would,
just-
they would likely be paying based on what their annual trips are anyway. I'm sure that they have to report that out in
Are
some
they
way.
paying
I mean,
the county events?
I was wondering what we should look at.
they should be just based on that nobody, you
Now-
know, if
I would
churches
like to
aren't
know.
paying, then I would assume that they're paying.
Okay.
but-
Yeah,
We
they
can
have to.
assume that-
So what I wanna do is I wanna start,
That might be why.
Even if it's like
you're
$2
paying
a
a
ticket,
local
yeah.
gas tax too, because really, you know, those people that are gassing up in Canby are paying for the street system now. So that's why it's good to have both systems, because a street maintenance fee is typically paid for by the local community. But the local gas tax is how you get, as you said, Jason, that's how you get the revenue from people that are coming through your town.
Assuming everyone's gassing up, we don't know for
Yeah.
sure.
Well,
well, and what I will say is, far as if the city, so a scenario would be, okay, any event that's coming into the city and is going to have a certain number of people coming in, you need to add a surcharge per your ticket. That means that our city billing department would have to start tracking how many people are coming to particular events, how many tickets are being sold, are you then billing that venue? Are the tickets being sold online, or are they being sold locally? So, I mean, that is something that could be looked into, but the billing and tracking mechanism of that,
That's a
It's
great
all
tourist
different.
I
thing,
mean,
you know?
to be sort of an honor system, honestly, then we
Yeah.
have to just have the right to audit them. If you feel like they're
I mean, that is something, so what I would like to do now is start to take down some things that we want, for more research.
Okay.
So, the one of the things I have is how much is the gas tax if that fee goes up? So what we're looking for is how much gas is sold, how many gallons sold. And how that tracks over time, correct? Does that sound like what you're trying to capture, some information that you're trying to
Like,
capture?
what is 2 cents at?
Yeah, what is, how many gallons? I mean, because, I mean, you gotta get to $1 million minimum, right, to maintain.
Yeah.
Obviously
Be able to
more,
do,
but
like, for every penny more.
I just think if you
generates so much.
go to $15 a household, I think a person would rather pay 2 cents more a gallon for gas than $15 a month on their sewer statement.
Well, especially since you're talking too about like folks at Hope Village, for example, where they probably go to the grocery store a couple times and that's all they drive. Well, they'd probably rather pay a little bit more for the gas than have their budget jacked. So.
Just the number to, I mean,
Yep.
there's gotta be a number, how many gallons are reported
Yep.
a quarter or a year.
So we will work on getting that. Another one that I heard is, when it comes to sorting out the fee based on percentage of road condition. It sounds like we need to do some research on, you know, if we want the system to move to this much, really, how much does that fee increase for an individual home, particular businesses and stuff, how that tracks? Does that sound like what you were looking for, is data for that?
And to circle back around to OLCC, so they won't pay for any of their street improvements because it's Oregon.
They would pay for the initial street improvements as far as SDCs and any half-street improvements and stuff, but the building, the racking, and all of that stuff that a business would normally get charged for, taxes coming into the city, they will pay for
And no other future.
because they're a state entity.
They're not exempt from
They're not gonna pay property taxes to the city.
the street maintenance fee.
Because it's a city.
Well, no, yes, so
Yeah,
that's
that's what I think
so they
he's
don't pay,
asking.
they don't pay state taxes, but state organizations are not exempt from fees.
So they would
they
pay
would have to pay the
Yes.
sewer fee, the street maintenance fee,
based on their.
If we kept it as is. the way
if
it
we
is.
kept it as a fee and not turn it into a tax.
I'm curious what you're.
And there's nothing
Yeah,
we
what
can
do you
do
think?
about
I
it.
can know more, I
There's
can look it up.
I'm sorry, what?
There's
Is
nothing
it
we can
public
do
record
about
what
that,
everyone's
right?
paying?
Yeah, we,
Yeah.
Jamie was grabbing it from
It'd be nice.
finance or something.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly who we only pulled like three. We pulled three kind of
Taskforce.
cuts
and
worth. Yeah,
I have it on
I mean,
there.
I'm curious, like little downtown businesses versus like your shopping
That's what we
mall.
looked, we did a church, we did.
we did like a like
All the
random
churches- all the
sampling
churches
though.
paying the same,
depends
even
on-
though their size and
What was that?
congregations are totally different.
Yeah, so I don't know about that, and we did kind of a random sampling to just kind of get a feel, but we didn't really dig into it, so,
'cause
that
we
will
were-
be something we'll have to ask our finance director about, to see if he could just pull what that is.
I'm curious, like if Gramer give the bill for the whole mall and then they have to charge Fred Meyer
Yes.
and the liquor store in some way?
That is how it works.
It's the owner.
That is how it
And
works.
then I'm also curious how that calculation is then, so how,
Well, how they calculate it out per person is not our chicken.
out there?
No, but I
We do
mean,
not
how
charge-
was
How is
that?
that shopping
How
mall?
do they
What's
come
it
up
calculated?
with safe?
It's-
I'm
yeah,
sure it's allocated based on square footage.
Yeah, so more information on what various
footage
businesses
is like.
and
The
other
trips.
buildings pay.
So most of that's gonna be retail, so they just
And-
count the square footage of the
Yeah.
total.
When we were initially preparing some numbers for this, we hesitated to put too many specifics in here because we did not feel that it was fair. Because if we only put, if we said this is the churches and this is how much they pay, essentially you could start to figure out what each person's paying. So if we do this, it will probably be an average based on like churches pay this, businesses of such amount pay this, businesses of this amount pay
Do
that.
we
just
wanna
wish they
go-
could
do
treat it
we wanna
right.
go over
Yes,
that?
it
Do we
is.
wanna go over what do we wanna bring back with that?
That's what I'm
That's
working
what
on
he's
right
working
now.
So
That's the list that I'm working on.
you
right
got it, okay.
Yeah. So we'll work on that.
Jason, I would say whatever it is, that it is kept simple as opposed to complex, because for every level of complexity, that is just that much more. City staff has to figure out how to administer.
You're talking about like what recommendation from this group is, how we skin this
I'm
cat.
just asking,
Yeah.
don't skin it so fine that it takes administrative, it takes 2 extra people just to administer it. So, kind of come up with general categories.
Yeah.
So that it's not difficult for our finance staff to implement.
Create a new program, people have to staff it as well, so.
Correct.
My fear on this, I'll be honest, is just losing what we got. I don't wanna go backwards.
Well, why do you have that fear?
Just that someone be opened up Pandora's box and say, we don't want to pay any street maintenance fee. Yeah, we went through that with the parks maintenance fee. I was in fear. We lost it. It went back to council because that's several employees. But here it's a
So you're-
mile of paving right
What's
You're fearful
utility
the
is
public's
part of
gonna be,
this.
the public's gonna reject it?
now. To me, it's this is 100% a council decision.
Well, essentially the fear is, and I share this fear with Jerry, is that if fee is raised from 5 to
much.
760, 790 or whatever, people might grumble about that, but their hair won't be settled. If it raises to $13 or $15, it will get us to where we need to be. But will that then organize the masses to say, well, we don't want to be paying this, we're going to do a campaign to send this to a vote from the citizens? And I would be hard pressed to say unless the city spends a ton of money promoting this to the voters of the city, it will fail. And then there will be no fee at all, and then that whole thing goes away.
Well, all can't pass. They're struggling. Because
What's their size?
they're at 10,000.
Why didn't you go from 746,
11,000.
meet in the middle somewhere, 1050?
Well, so
What if you started at, and I'm not saying we're gonna vote for this yet, by the way, I'm just.
No, this is all part of the.
750 to 8 to the initial increase, but then what would that, if we after that, then put the inflationary index on it, what would that look like to get us to the state? So it's like, we take one big jump and then smaller.
He had kind of, that's funny, you two. You guys are both
Stop that,
brains
no, we
right.
don't. We don't think anything like it.
Because you had something similar that you were telling me earlier, that's similar to that, that didn't impact them. I'm just worried what it's
And the
gonna
gas
do.
taxes go up.
That's what I'd like for you to do, with, that's what I was wondering, who do we dig into on this? I know you're working on that, but like, do we look at businesses in this room?
Yeah, so essentially that was,
Church,
yeah, so we'll look at churches, businesses of various, we'll get that information, churches, businesses of various square footages that are all very similar size. And then, we'll probably look at a few, we'll do an average of, nonprofit organizations that have physical structures in the city that are paying the fee, and that would probably be like the Kiwanis. The
Is
Candy
CAT,
Center.
is CAT included in that? What's CAT under?
CAT
That's the
is,
city department.
yes, so essentially, so police and the buses and stuff don't pay the fee, because essentially the money is coming out of the city budget anyways. So part of the money that is going to
But then
the
there are overhead.
streets.
Those drive a lot, though.
Well, that's true, yes. And so, so that's sort of, so yeah, so like the police and the buses and stuff, they don't pay a specific fee to the city because it would essentially be like, well, we're moving one pot of general fund money to another pot of general fund money. And the streets are already getting a certain portion of the general fund money. But I mean, if you wanna recommend, if you wanna look at what that would look like if CAT and the police department paid those fees, we can ask that.
I would like to
I mean,
see
they
what
do
it would
drive
do
on
to those budgets,
and
just because we
or
already
nothing.
do that same exact thing to all the funds have to pay for IT and all the funds have to pay for
Borrow from
admin.
Peter to pay Paul.
So why doesn't anybody that have a fleet have to help pay for the streets? So just, I'm not saying let's
And
do that in the
police.
budget, but
Yes.
police and the police, anybody with a fleet, so the
Public
police,
Works,
public works.
Parks, and CAT.
It doesn't make sense for public works, but anyway.
Well,
But
they're
we
driving
overhead
down
is-
the roads.
But we already do that overhead charge for our other things, so if you use cars,
Candy utility, I
then,
wonder what they.
I'm not saying I'm going to go for it, I just want to see. what that
No, it's
looks
good
like.
they did.
Isn't a cat paid by, like, supported by all the local businesses?
Yes,
Yeah,
it
they're
is.
supported by
And
them.
I've always
And
wondered,
grants,
why isn't the local
I do
businesses
pay.
advertised on the buses then?
And the
We'd
Cub,
have to get a lot bigger buses.
do you know if Cub,
because
do
every business pays it.
you know if Candy
We should
utility?
advertise our business.
I can't remember if
We don't have
Cub pays
business
or
that
not.
big.
I wanna check into that
Nobody's
too,
name
because
on
they
it.
used to
We
be
can
down
hire
here.
one of us.
We suggest as part of the budget that you all receive go to the street maintenance.
It does, we do actually say support the local.
So
business
essentially
on
what
that.
would happen-
Certain ones are good, like
Do the work.
wastewater, I mean.
Yeah, so essentially what would happen is, like, the police gets a certain percentage of the budget. We would have to say that based on the size of your building
Mhm.
and the number of vehicles that you generate, of the money that is allocated to you in your budget, we are going to take a certain percentage of that and take it over to streets.
Yeah, what's wrong with that?
That would be.
I don't have a problem with it.
So,
That was the Georgia
so the community
Tech, I take
is
that as a big
recommending
compliment.
that to the council, so that's.
Well,
part of-
so what we're gonna do is we're gonna pull those numbers to see what sort of impact
Great
that.
idea.
But also would like to see what the
Well,
impact on
please.
those funds would be. I mean,
Correct,
Sure.
yes.
because I mean,
That's
seriously,
true.
we're already trying to figure out how to pay for another police officer. Now we're gonna talk about taking it away. I know I'm the one that I said,
Another police
let's do it,
officer.
but let's
At
look
the
at
end
these
of the day, you're
numbers.
just taking
But I
money
just-
out of the
I'm-
right bucket.
That is a good thing.
You could funnel more money though,
80% of the-
yeah, it's gonna be more admin time, it's gonna be more cost, it isn't probably
It's something that we'll pull some
is
information on. and
across
take
the
a look
board.
at. Okay, so we got that one. I've got, what would it look like if you do a one-time jump and then
That's what you were
inflation
talking
costs?
about.
Yeah, but I wanna make that jump too. It's like
Well,
758 max and then attach an inflationary index after that.
and that's why, and I had done some numbers and unfortunately I've lost this information, but I had essentially taken the fees and the gap and all that stuff. And at one point in time, I had figured out that if, over the course of 5 years,
Yeah.
if the city increased the fee each year, like the fee, the per month fee for everybody through the system by 12% for 5 years. And then in year 6, it dropped down to the inflationary mechanism of 2.5% to 4% or whatever. That 5-year period, you would generate enough revenue to fill the hole that was created and then go from there.
But you're gonna be
That
right
one will
back
build
in
the
the
council
same-
chambers, because no city, no state, no county, no government entity has met a tax that they will give up again. And this
I
is a
agree.
tax.
Yeah, it's
So
never
if you
gonna
put it in the, you can't tell me you're gonna crawl it
Yeah.
back down, and nobody in this town is gonna believe it, and it will fill council chambers, I can guarantee.
No,
you.
that's the one thing that Matilda Diaz was not involved in this one, right? Who started, I mean, which one was
It
she
It was
involved in?
Jeff.
John
what-
Because she did
It
the
was
same thing and said, oh,
John
then we're gonna drop it back
John
down.
Williams.
Yeah.
No,
John
but-
Williams, Tom Scott, Jack Pendleton, Jason Patton, it was
Yeah,
like a
there was a
really,
list
it was-
somewhere.
That's okay.
It's in
Yeah,
the
it's
book.
not-
Just
it's in
saying,
here,
you're
yeah.
not gonna,
It's the list
Where
of
we
people,
get
it's in
goes
this
back.
book somewhere, I saw it, but I don't remember now where. This is not a booklet. I want to see your library. This is a booklet.
I got some thick books.
It's just everything that he has shared with me over the
Correct.
time. Jamie
So
and I.
not everyone's
stockpile.
paying for this.
Yeah.
Sites.
That is correct, yeah, so these fees are only charged to folks that are inside the urban, that are annexed into the city.
Could we charge a slight fee for those outside, because
I
it's
agree.
realistic to assume.
We
you're
have
still
to do it.
coming in.
Anybody
have
with
no
a
way of
Canby
doing
address, why?
You didn't get our
Because,
sewer.
because it's a county thing. And there are some residences that pay water and sewer. So like if you go out to the end of Territorial where it connects to 99E, there's those houses that are kind of back in along the railroad tracks. Those folks are actually on city water. But they are not within the city limits. And the reason that is their wells cannot sustain those homes. And so a special easement has been granted to those residents to be tied into to municipal water, even though they're not within the city limits. They're on their own septic tanks, but they're actually hooked up to city water. There are a
Board
few
decision
places.
for Camp Utility.
Actually, it goes to the city council to approve.
Oh, okay,
Because
that's right.
the
it is city.
water system is owned by the city.
We just.
Are they on our sewer?
No,
They're not.
No, they just can't get safe drinking water.
Okay, well, yeah,
Yeah.
but since this is billed through sewer, we don't really have a way
It'd be
to
difficult.
capture it from that.
yes. So there's really there's no way, the city would essentially have to try and make some agreement with the county to do similar calculations to those people outside of the city limits. And considering we can't even get the county to give us enough money when we take over these streets to, like, put in sidewalks, I highly doubt that they would be
We
willing
don't
to do
allow
that.
it.
That's too bad because they're just as much in the city driving around as everybody else.
Hence the gas tax.
So what I'm gathering
Yeah,
here
those are-
is we kind of have an idea what to do with the house, cost per household. So we need to dig into what it's gonna do to the businesses. Yeah, that's what we don't really have the information here.
Yeah, so what I've got written down at this point in time is, does Cub pay, the street maintenance?
I'm curious about that.
How much is the gas that's brought in, and
Yeah.
what various models of increasing that gas tax would look like?
In fairness, how are you gonna manage the gas tax? I mean, if you guys are worried about administering a ticket increase at Hutchins County Fair,
That's,
how are you gonna manage the?
Because the
tax?
gas stations are regulated in a
I
different
don't
way.
think he was here.
Oh, no.
We're
Oh, yeah,
already
you
getting-
are.
we're already getting
So-
3 cents.
Yeah.
is that a council decision or did that go?
That was a council, so backing up just a little bit. As part of the original street maintenance fee task force, the decision was to create a street maintenance fee, but also create a gas tax, so that the gas tax would be capturing those people who don't live in the city and are driving out. We have to do some research on this, but the prevailing theory is that the various gas stations pay ODOT the various taxes, and the state knows that we are charging a gas tax, and so then they remit our 3 cents a gallon to us. And that revenue is coming in, because
Well.
that's what we use. There is a certain amount of money in the budget that we use, and that's what's used for, the, ADA updates to the sidewalks and stuff.
There were a
Do you
number,
get that like monthly, quarterly, annually?
That's something that we can look into.
One of the
there were a
budget,
number of cities
one of
that.
the budget
that
committee
have
members
local
brought
gas
this up,
taxes that
and he
feel
said,
that
when we were at budget last week, he said Canby gas is way cheaper than everyone else. We need to,
It is, that's why bumping it up a couple of cents, people aren't gonna really notice it as much as
it's
jacking their service.
and it was back when we did that, I was telling him earlier that it was mom and pop's gas stations, and they were upset, but now it's Myers, it's bigger. BP's kind of the only small,
Yeah, but it really, yeah,
Spacing, that might
Basically,
take,
it's just a
that
family.
might take a local vote though.
that's what I was wondering, if that
Well,
takes
the
a local.
gas, what, the gas tax? No, when we implemented, it was done
When you
through council.
implemented, it was done through council.
But now it might not
So
be able to.
now it is
Oh,
not
okay.
required, it is required to be taken to a vote because
Oh.
I
I think it
was,
would be appealing to
I was.
residents.
Especially if it's just a few cents a gallon, they might vote for it.
See,
Well,
that's why I thought
and-
you were.
I think that has a better shot of passing than just
will-
going to the vote.
Well, we will crunch the numbers, but as long as I've been monitoring this situation, I don't think that there is any number. I think that the amount that we would have to increase the gas tax to generate this revenue will be extremely high. And the other thing you have to keep in mind is that as cars become more fuel efficient and more electric cars come on, then we will continue to see a slide in any revenue that we create from the gas
So
tax.
the difference here is that it is a gas tax
Yes,
as opposed to a street maintenance fee.
correct.
That's why a tax has to go to the voters, a maintenance fee or utility fee does not.
Has there ever been a survey sent out to residents asking them if they object to, you know,
There has not of late, there was in this packet, there is, as part of the street maintenance fee task force, there was a, survey done, and there were quite a few people that said that if this was put to a vote, they would not vote for it.
It's pretty
What year
interesting.
was
how long ago was that?
I know,
That
right?
was
What's
when
that?
this
What
fee
year
was
was that?
created.
07.
Oh,
08.
people who answer surveys
Oh,
are still
six.
selecting your vote,
06.
right? They're not
Well,
even the actual-
that's true,
like,
but-
positive,
We're gonna
right,
be
right, not
reinvesting
response.
the survey, we could do it inexpensively, send out. a
That,
survey.
it needs to be online, mailers are expensive.
They are, but I mean, certainly if citizens know, I mean, even just me, just going, in 2007, and it was $5 and we haven't raised it since. Wow. Do we want our streets to be in good shape? Do we, I mean, yeah,
That's why we're here is,
yeah.
yeah, because I think we do.
So something to keep in mind with that, this is the sort of the scenario I will give you. Capper. How many of you are familiar with Capper, the Canby area Parks and Recreation District? So many years ago, there was a vote sent forward to folks to either, A, create a Canby Parks and Recreation District, and then B, fund it. The citizens voted to create the district,
Yeah.
but they did not vote to fund it.
And for the last 30 years, it won't fund it.
And
Indeed.
it has gone to the vote, it has been proposed to the voters at least 5 or 6 times.
More than that, every 4 years for the last 30.
To fund this district, and it fails every
We're
time.
so behind times.
You look at all the new residents you have.
I know.
Even, yes, I understand.
Part of
I
the
mean-
thinking is because it's not a levy, it's a permanent tax, and it's a whole different, it's another regional government. We could get rid of capital and pass a park tax that's city controlled, we would have a better shot. So,
As,
I would have voted for it then if that was the case. That was before I was on council. I never voted for it because of that.
Yeah.
I don't want another layer of government telling the city what they can do with their park land.
so, I wrote down here, could we do a survey asking, for input on increases?
Are there grants available, Jamie?
I don't have any information on grants for these kinds of projects. It would be more, Jerry would know more.
Yep. And we do apply for, we got the federal fund exchange that comes in that we applied for, that we get another 700 every other year.
Yeah, most of the
Question.
grants
But there's more out
available are, that I know of, are about like the Walnut Street extension, the one from Highway 99 to Highway 99 to the industrial park. Since it's a new road and it will help to connect and bring in new jobs or new development, then something like that is available. That's more kind of what I know of, is like that economic development, rather than something that helps to bring us up to a standard where then we can kind of continue that standard from then on.
Is there any data out there that tells us how many events are held at Clackamas County Fairgrounds every year and how many ticket sales?
I think that the
Brian.
last time I talked to Brian Crow, who's the director,
Super nice guy.
super nice guy, he said there's about 350,000 people that go through those doors every day. Yeah, or every year, yes, every year.
350,000.
Every day.
So if you take that number and times by, you know, $2, that's good.
He's doing good things.
I'm
He's
telling
worked-
you right now, I mean, I'm
If
gonna
it's
show my
transparent,
cards
This
a
is
little bit.
interesting.
If you don't show it, if you don't tell, I mean,
This is
Make
the
it like-
original.
if
Even a
it's built
dollar
in,
says
no one
that.
knows all the
Uh,
tickets, so it's just
This
gone up.
is
I don't
kind
know
of
that
how it
$2
would
a ticket's
work.
going.
Well, they're
This
used to
is
paying
kind of-
surcharges and fees with ticket sales.
Well, yes, but the thing we have to
But
keep
you
in
have to
mind
itemize
is,
Yeah, like
Yeah.
this
but the
elementary
thing we have to keep
school.
in mind is that now we have to hire
Depending on
another
this or
person in
that,
city,
it's-
another staff person
That's-
to
that's
monitor all that.
interesting.
Do, what can
Yes.
one person do
There's-
and then say,
Is that-
after every
Can
event,
that be a
show me
drawing
your
somewhere?
ticket sales,
So,
you know that we're adding.
So-
I mean, we can
I'd
look
be
at
interested
that.
to see if
They
you're
sell 10,000
times
tickets,
10
they
of
remit
that.
$10,000 at the
Maybe
end of the day.
20K.
I,
Or 20
I'm just telling you, we will look into it, but it's not as easy as you make it sound.
That- Exactly, and then no one's, that's,
And not specifically for my.
We're trying to dig for some
but this would
options.
probably be more like Daniel.
I mean,
10,000
good to identify the
square feet,
Yeah,
15.
There's a list of
$20
options
an
from
acre.
the original work session.
So. but
What
this
page is that?
It's towards the
Wait, no,
beginning, I know, it's not helpful.
That's what this says back
These
then.
pages, they're not.
The page on the other side of it says
Industrial,
bid
right?
Yeah.
system.
So I'd be curious to see what you're paying.
Well, there's no page
Is
number,
it
she's
on
got,
the-
yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, you'll see the
Yeah.
court next,
Am I
yeah,
good
right
for
there.
line item? It shows, what did it show, Jamie, what each business?
Okay,
I wasn't-
so
sorry,
really
I
quickly,
didn't-
hold on, folks, we need to make sure we're capturing all of this stuff, so we know what we got going on. So one of the things that was, talked about was if you look in this book, and I'm not sure, we really don't know what page it is, but you'll see, its corresponding page is this bid system.
Yeah,
This is an original, it's about yay far into the book.
quarter.
Yeah, I'd say about a
Yeah,
quarter.
make sure you put page numbers when we do this again, please.
I did not create these books. We'd have to hand numbers.
So that would be leave it up to me.
We'd have to sit down and hand numbers.
It's like 22 or 23.
Hey, what-
It's on yours in the picture.
Found it.
It's, let's see.
So after these kind of colorful.
Okay.
things, let's see your-
After
Yeah,
a
you're good.
presentation.
There you go.
What about a one-time like donation? In like a city of Canby bill, since you guys don't do like film yet. About doing like a one-time, like, hey, we're trying to get our streets up to par, blah, 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 we need to raise this much money, we're going to do it one time before we go to a. raise your-
That's several other people.
raise your
Or
monthly-
Kind of brought that up
business
too.
license, how long's it been since a business license been raised?
Never.
Do we know?
Never.
I mean, really, $50 is not that much to pay for a business license.
20 years.
Okay, so what are you talking about over there?
Business license, maybe
I don't
we
know
need
if
to
it's
raise that.
appropriate, we'd have to see if we could use that money towards the streets, if it's appropriate or not.
But how do you buy a
Where
business
does
or
the
renew a
business-
business
I think you
license?
should at least
Once a year,
add it to the
$50.
list.
Yeah.
So what is, I'm trying to, hold on a second, so what are you wanting to have
Well,
research
have
on?
we looked into business license increase?
Increasing the business license,
Okay.
it's been $50 for years.
Yeah, for like 20 years. I
But
think
also,
$50
if
a
you do
year.
increase it, how can we effectively get that money into
Into
where you want it
this.
to go?
Yeah.
Because if we just
Is the
increase
license
fees,
charge that we have to pay
Once a
every year?
year.
Okay,
that would
Where
just
does that
be
money go
a
now?
transaction.
I don't know what the city does. I mean,
It just goes in the general fund, right? So we would
Well,
just put
you
that,
could, you could design it such that, I mean, if the business license was the collection mechanism, then through the accounting system, you would just say so much of a portion of this business license goes into the street fund instead.
Yeah.
So
And
it
that-
would be fair.
and it doesn't matter what size of business you have.
right, no, doesn't matter how many employees, how many trips, how many square feet, it's like you have a
It's a
business.
flat
Could
fee.
be a one-time flat fee, just a surcharge imposed on the business license.
So that's something council.
I mean,
would adopt as part of the
OLCC
budget.
raised all of our
Because
prices
it's just
and it
a
was the first time they'd done it in like 50 years and it tripled.
okay.
What
But
are we
I'm
getting
just saying-
today for the business?
Oh, it
What's the total?
says, business
Business
license
No,
fee
but what's
in
the
here,
total
it says
bill?
businesses only, so what is that what?
That means the only businesses would be paying.
I don't have my
Sorry.
actual book, but
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you're not gonna capture residential that way.
Right.
But we could raise
Uses,
it.
But
But you could.
It's something the city should really look at. I hate to say
Yeah.
that, but really.
If
What about
A
speeding
business
tickets?
owns its land,
I don't
then they're paying twice.
Or tickets?
I don't know how anyone.
Well, I mean, so,
Unless you're Teresa, then you can
so,
pay it.
really quick,
Right, I know.
She said unless the business owner owns their land, then they pay it twice. I said unless it's Teresa, then she'll finally pay it.
Hey, listen, I paid more in fees for that building than the building cost me for.
Ooh.
All
building.
of it.
there you go.
There.
So one of the
Yeah.
things that was thrown out, I'm sorry, what was tickets? So, ticketed, revenue generated from tickets through Canby Police Department. If memory serves me correctly, those funds stay within the police department. And so those fees are what help fund the police department. So any amount that we pulled from that that's currently in there
Red
would
flags.
decrease the amount of funding. And already, based on our last budget,
Well, you should distinguish between the mechanism to collect the revenue and the revenue itself. So, so there are all these various methods that are being thrown out right now. We could, add it to, surcharge to ticket sales for events, or we could add it to, a surcharge to,
tickets generated by.
tickets generated by speeding, or we could
Okay.
add it to, the utility bill, which we do currently, or we could add it to the business license. So those are just different mechanisms to collect it. So that's one aspect of it. If there's any other way to capture more revenue, than you have already.
It's all
But you
good.
already have a mechanism to
Well, I know,
add
I
the
mean,
revenue.
you got the
It's just a
two,
matter of
the
increase.
two ways are already in place, there's just never been an increase.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, that's the problem. And it's gonna be a stunning increase to every resident,
Not gas and
the gas and actual,
Well-
the actual tax, you have them in place, it's just.
And some of the interesting things that are coming out of this group that I had not originally thought about was, and again, I really don't think, we will look into it, but I don't know about that charging a fee per tickets for events and stuff, but like, if we did a little bit of a surcharge on business licenses, and there was a surcharge on speeding tickets or any tickets that go through court and stuff, something that is not taking an existing pot of money and then siphoning it off into this program, but is actually generating additional revenue.
It has to be generating additional revenue.
Correct. All of those things that are being done over here could then essentially lessen the blow
Yeah.
of increasing the cost per business or per household for the street maintenance fee. Ultimately, and trust me, I have been watching this fee for the last 16 years. There is no way to make that go away. It needs to be tied to some sort of mechanism for increase. Because if not, in 20 years, this group will come together and be in the same situation that I was in with the original group 16 years ago. And that is that there's not enough revenue coming in to fund the streets. And ultimately, and I hate to be Doug Downer here, but this group is facing a very similar quandary to the group back then, is that if we really want the street system to be at 100%, there's very few mechanisms to make that actually happen.
Tracy, I have a question. If we were to do it, for instance, the Clackamas County Fairgrounds, if we were to put a fee on each
Surcharge.
ticket, would that have to go through the commissioners?
Yes, because they are in the city limits, but they
Yes.
are sovereign over there.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm wondering if, I know it's a hard sell to look lower than 100, but the, 84 is the number, right? The
Oh, yeah.
recommended
That's the-
number,
Yes,
Industry standard.
right, so say we look at 90, just maybe we can find some example calculations of what that difference would be, because if it's 10, 15, 20 more dollars a month for somebody, between 100 and 90, maybe we should shoot for 90.
I'm gonna put 90, 85, 80%.
I don't think you're gonna get the 13 or the 22 without a big uproar.
Right.
My personal
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah, no, I completely
You're
agree.
absolutely correct.
So 746 gets you to
750 to 8.
good, right?
So in,
Well, that's
in,
where I,
Gets us to current.
that's where I'm saying 1050,
I mean, in my
That's-
opinion,
1050 or 11.
we can't get there with the two mechanisms that we
But
have.
this is what we're
That's-
talking
We
about.
have to create new
I
mechanisms.
thought you would say that.
Well, or increase it and increase
But
it.
that's gonna
Gas
be
tax.
too significant of an increase.
That would be.
We have to kind of flatten it out for this. So the only way to do that is to create new mechanisms of collecting the money. And that's really what our intention is.
yes, because according to this, like, if we wanted to take the $5 to where it should have been with an inflationary increase each year, it would be at about $7.90 per single family household.
So. But you guys.
So just think about it, is what you're saying.
What others?
So
$500 to $1 million.
it sounds
$96.
Hmm?
$96.
for,
$8.
per household, yeah.
Say that again.
I'm just saying per year, at 7, I figured $8.
Yep. That keeps us, and do it inflation based after that or not? Well, does that get too greedy?
No, I think that would be.
We don't have to come back.
I think we have to or figure it out, another way to supplement.
Do we like where the roads are now, I guess?
Well, so here's the thought.
As long as you pay the road right in front of you.
So here's the thought I'd like to throw out for people to consider as we move forward. And so we've got a lot of different scenarios that, I say I do plan on helping, I have helped the city, create, work like with Jamie and Jerry, create this, PowerPoint, and I am very much invested in this program. And so I am putting in the extra effort to make sure that something comes of this. And so I am happy to work with the city and kind of model out some of these scenarios, like if this is where, if we want it to be at a certain percentage overall, if we increase the street maintenance fee by this much, if we increase the gas tax by this much, if we add a surcharge to these various other things and do all this stuff, how do we run those models and get to kind of where we're looking for? So that is one of the things that we're gonna kind of do moving forward, if that makes sense to the city folks, right? And then I'm gonna kind of take us back to recommendations to council, which we're not even close to yet. But essentially, what my vision has always been is that this group will meet every so many years and track how the progress has been. So what I would like to see and what I would hope to see come up from this group as a city councilor is that we are recommending these various changes, but in 3 years or 4 years or whatever, we want to convene this group and see how all of those changes have impacted the revenue stream. And has it impacted it in a way that we've overstepped the mark, which is highly unlikely? Are we still tracking too low? Is there things that we need to do? Are there more fine-tuned tweaks that we need to do to make this work? Because unfortunately, when the street maintenance fee task force originally met, they were using a hatchet to try and do this work, to cut this up. Now we are essentially doing it all over again. Whereas if it needs more often, maybe we can use a scalpel to make these tweaks rather than having to do them all in big chunks, if that makes sense. So, what do people think?
So we're meeting again when, after today?
So it's probably gonna take some time. So the goal is to not have it take as long as we did when we first met, because our first meeting was in 2004 and our third meeting was in like 2007. So
Oh,
that is
Jeez.
not, yeah, it was very weird.
That doesn't-
So what I think we're gonna do is, it's probably, and this is a question for city staff. This is a lot of scenarios to run. My suspicion is it's gonna take some time to put all these numbers together. Not weeks, but months. Is that a safe assumption?
Oh, that's not like
That-
that long. I don't
okay,
wanna
I don't-
start over.
Like a month?
You're gonna,
I was hoping.
if you're saying
No, I
months,
think that it should be at least a month because we are finishing up our budget cycle, which
Yes.
means our finance department is extra tapped right now, and we're
Yes.
gonna need them to be able to.
oh, a month is.
And we're
I can
going into
totally see that.
summer, and so everybody's summer gets very busy. So my suspicion is that if we targeted, because this is what, June, right?
June, we got
July.
lots of events.
Like maybe
Absolutely.
end of August, first part of September?
First week of September sounds good to me, after Labor Day, people, kids are back in school, events are over.
That's 3 months.
I thought we said a month.
Jeez.
I just don't see getting this all put
Well,
together.
then, let's say 2 months,
So
at
August.
least, to reconvene and see where we
We need to
Where
get
we've
Scott from the finance department, time to get this data.
Yeah, because that's the
budget doesn't get
situation.
adopted until the end of this month.
But you've got a little research to do before you even get there, correct?
Can you read what are the takeaways again? What do we wanna have? Maybe we just narrow that list down.
So I've got, could we charge a fee for tickets at the Clackamas County Fairgrounds?
Okay.
How does, can we increase business licenses? Can we add surcharges to tickets that are written by Canby PD? Does Cub pay for the street maintenance fee? What would it look like if CAT, police, parks, public works, and other fleet services in the city pay into the fee? Are there grants that could be used to fund some of this? More info on what various businesses and other buildings pay within the current fee. And then how would that increase depending on the various like scenarios that we would run for increasing their fees? How would all of this be if the fee increase was based on a set percentage of the paving condition index? Could we do a survey asking for input from the community about potential increases? How much is the gas tax? How much impact would it be if the gas tax was increased? How much gas do we sell, or how much gas has been sold historically, and how various percentage increases would track? Can the city adjust the gas tax? Can the city council adjust the gas tax, or does it have to be done by a vote? How is the gas tax billed, or how does the city collect that revenue when the gas stations pay? Those are the action items.
I think, I heard a couple of others.
Okay.
What is the failure rate of the existing street system? And, what is the total need and cost to fix all of the roads?
We just, I think we're at 15 million for that. Well, I was thinking, if we come up with 15 million to get it done, what's the maintenance cost, 5 million then? They're following.
Pretty rough.
So what would that look like if we did a $5 million increase into the actual bill, monthly bill? What would that percentage look like per household? Maybe we just
5 million?
5 million just to maintain. We increase everyone's rate so that then they keep paying for the maintenance, and then we figure out a way to subsidize the actual non-monthly 15 million. So it's a one and done kind of.
We gladly take a donation from a downtown business or property.
Okay, what would the increase
Got a
look
surplus.
like?
Well, the budget's currently 670 grand a year. So
Right.
if you want 5 million, you're basically,
Well, that's what he says
that's
we
a
need.
huge increase, just for 5 million.
Yeah.
So,
So
Yeah.
another
That's good.
I mean,
possibility
if you go in and bring 5
about
that's
48.
that you.
Yeah,
And
50
that's
bucks
just the
an
maintenance
hour.
after you raise the fence.
Just a second.
Another
So-
possibility is that you issue a bond, a general obligation bond that fixes the streets to a certain level. And then you have, a, you know, CPI-based street maintenance fee after that.
And that's something we have to vote on.
It'd go to the
Yes.
voters, 15 million bond or 20 million, whatever it is now. But I guess
But that would get everything kind of fixed one
Yeah.
time.
I guess the question I have, this is getting like really serious here.
Well, and I will say this.
I mean, we're not gonna get anywhere. I'm just.
No,
gonna
no,
be
no, no,
honest.
I will
Yes,
say
we
this.
are.
Yes,
Yes,
we
hold on a
You're
second,
being
hold
more
on.
defensive
No,
to me.
hold on a
I
second.
wanna ask a simple question for
Jerry,
this group.
I will say this, this is very indicative of what happened during
Yes,
the initial.
Thank you.
And what ended up happening was we ended up tracking
Narrowing
out
it
these
down.
scenarios, narrowing it down, and then created the recommendation. I will say that some of these, like the ticket thing was not originally thought of. That's a new idea. So that I think is intriguing. But
Clackamas County ticketing, that's the.
tickets and police
So-
tickets and
yeah.
the
So with
business
that being
licenses
said,
and
can
all
we
those.
break that out a little bit?
Huh?
Can somebody take on talking to a commissioner and asking what their thought would be, just to kind of throw it out there a little bit?
That's a
I mean,
political thing.
I would certainly talk to Martha Schrader.
Oh, you wanna see, just kind of feel out the.
I would love to feel it
I'll
out.
call them last.
Would you?
I think that's the key, is some of these items are going to, you know.
I can call
Sure,
Ben
Pretty
Paul,
quickly, because somebody's gonna say,
They're both
we're
selling
not willing, or
Mark's
we're
on the
not.
fence, we don't know if Mark will be
we're
there,
not
I'll call
against-
Ben Paul.
against-
I mean, just fill it out and just see.
Okay.
And
I'm
raise
glad
the
I put
business
switch
license,
items.
fee.
This is a
Does
ticket
that have to
sales,
be a council
a fee on
decision?
ticket sales in
Okay.
Clackamas County.
Okay, so you're.
But it's a
Yes.
council
I really like
decision as opposed to a
I-
decision.
but I have a simple question.
Yes.
What does this group
So-
want the roads to be at? That's what
That's
I'd like to
So-
know. What level, what do we want them to be at?
What do you want?
Well,
I
well, I
don't live
think,
here and work here, an ideal
You work here.
situation.
Jerry.
I would like to get this right here with inflation based gas.
You just know where we're at.
No, yeah, I wanna see where we're at and then.
at a
look at-
minimum.
At a
I
minimum,
think,
that's
Jerry,
right.
so what we're doing is, all of these scenarios, and all of these scenarios are going to be tied to, if we use all of these various funding mechanisms, what do we have to charge to hit 90%? What do we have to charge for 85% or 80%?
Yeah, and, well, no, I wanna be perfectly
We're
honest.
trying to get you covered.
I've been working on urban renewal projects with Jamie for 3-4 years, and we haven't done any of them.
Yes,
So I'm saying we need to focus and figure out what we want this to be at. And if
Ask for
there's,
the order.
and I
Yeah.
think, and this
so I can
is,
get pavement.
Well, I'm
What'd you say, Jamie?
I said ask for the order.
well, and this is what I will say, is that the goal is for, after a set number of meetings, for there to be a set of recommendations that is sent to the city council. And they will then decide, so it can be sent forward
Another
as,
question about that.
just a second. So it can be sent forward as a package to say, this is how we have come, this is our total recommendation. These are the fees and these are the amounts, and this is why we've come to this amount. Or they could pick it apart and say, we agree to this, we agree to that, but we don't agree to these other things. So that is something to just keep in mind of, as far as what recommendation we put forward to the city council. Jerry.
Are we gonna have this done before November?
The goal is to have it done. I think
With
Based on-
waiting months, with-
based on the read that I got from people's conversations tonight, I foresee this, depending on what data comes back and what the scenario, how well the scenarios are mapped out for the next meeting, it's possible that there might be a recommendation after the next meeting. It might take a third meeting.
That would be good, because if we go in and we get a new council, could start over, you know,
Exactly.
that's my concern too. I don't wanna lose our hard work, I'd like to keep.
The thing to keep in mind though, and we learned this.
No offense to counselors.
Well,
No.
we've been at this since 2007.
I've been at this since longer than,
Yeah.
I have been, as a budget committee member, I was railing on the city council.
So this is not an issue that relates to the current city council. This is an issue that relates to the needs of the city.
Yeah,
It will.
Correct, but the makeup of the council. could
Well, I think this
potentially
group
change.
is all for moving ahead.
sure.
Yeah.
And, but something, and this is to Jerry's point, and I will just throw this out there, is that with this being a council decision, if the council changes, regardless of whether a decision is made before the council changes or not, the council could change its mind again. The previous council decided to make the park maintenance fee permanent
Thank you.
and not sunset every 5 years. And then within a matter of a month or two, the incoming council
Change.
said, no, we're not gonna do that, we're going back to a sunset. So ultimately, those are various possibilities, but I don't want the thought of that to get folks like spirits down about the work of this group. It can get there. We've got some good thoughts here that we are gonna go ahead and kind of chart out. And I feel that if a very concise, reasonable recommendation is made to the council, either currently or in the future, they will pick up some, if not all of it.
Well, and I think you have 2 or 3.
But in order
Solid
to,
things that can be.
make this all work, it's going to essentially need to be a little bit of all of these things to get it over the line. So an increase of the street maintenance fee, perhaps a bump up, a one-time bump up or something for a set period of time to make up some of the lost room, increased gas tax. Can we charge a surcharge can we add surcharges to existing things the city is billing for that would come into, yeah, like business licenses and stuff?
Other cities charge on average for that?
For street maintenance.
No, for business license fees.
Oh,
$150.
Huh?
150.
Yeah, I really think that's something the council should look at right away. And I'm just.
Well, I
saying
would like
that
it to be part of
Well, it would have
this.
to be in the next
It could be, but I think.
fee schedule, wouldn't it?
How many
Which is
businesses are there in
soon.
Canby and how much would that increase revenue?
yeah, but.
Well, that's something we would need to adjust, we would need to invest. That would be part of
Is the
that.
list too ambitious, maybe?
I haven't-
Maybe we should shrink it down so that we don't.
I don't think.
I'd
it
like to
all
keep it, I'm not trying to get out of work, I'll do these meetings for years, and I just,
I'm trying to move us forward.
Maybe the list is.
Go ahead, Tracy.
For Eileen and Jerry and Jamie, how much time do we need to allow for this data to be flushed out and brought back to us? 6, 8 weeks, 4 weeks? I'm thinking probably at least 6.
I would assume 6 would probably be good, and that would get us past the 4th of July holiday, which takes up,
So
you
should
know,
we
quite a
set
bit of
a
staff
next meeting
resources
for
and
July
vacation.
15th? 6 weeks from today. I'm just trying to.
I mean, and I'm
I like
saying,
that.
you know, if there's any part of that, even though we're not city employees, if there's any part of it that we can help gather for data,
Mhm.
use us.
So what I
I
would,
also email us the information as you get it.
I would
Yeah,
say
so we don't-
early
like, you know what I
August
mean?
feels
Yep.
If
about
you get,
the right
like,
time
someone
to come
gets back to you,
us.
and another person just like send it out, just be like, oh, I gotta get things
So
out.
I
Yeah,
need
Before the next.
So-
August 5th.
when it comes to the next meeting, this is what, okay, hold on a second.
I need feeling more like August is better. Early
That's
August.
what
August
I,
5.
well, now just a second. We have a lot of people on this group. And so what I would like to do is do something similar, another doodle poll. So we'll sit down and look at the calendar and come up with a menu of dates. And then people can go in and vote on all the dates that work for them. And whichever date has the most people who are able to make it, that will be the date. And it will be sometime in the beginning, within the first 2 weeks of August. Does that sound reasonable to folks?
Personally, I can tell you that the second week might be difficult for a lot of people because that would be Fair Week, isn't it? I would go with. last
Fair
week
will
of this.
start the 13th of August.
Yeah, I would do the
13th
last
of
week of July, first week of August.
Okay,
I agree.
Is this a change by resolution if we decided to do it?
I think it's an
It's an ordinance.
okay. Sure. Dollars.
Okay.
So it'd be public hearing, choose readings, all that stuff.
30 days.
okay, last week of July, first week of August.
It's never gonna take enough, so I'm not worried about it.
Huh?
We'll just keep moving forward.
What's wrong?
Oh, nothing.
Huh?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Hmm?
Oh, there's no way we'll make it. We'll just keep pushing forward. I'll relax and not worry about it before the next change of the guards and all that.
No, I mean, if we come up with the scenarios and the data
There might
rings
not,
true,
yeah.
I mean, it could be that the recommendation is fleshed out at that meeting in July or August. But it might come down to, if there's a third meeting, you know, then you're talking
Maybe we can make it just a couple weeks
September or
out.
October, right? The trick is the summer. That is a tricky part.
Well, we'll just do what we can do.
Yes, exactly. And the other thing is this is a ton of data that we need to get put together. My suspicion is the next time this groups meet, we'll have all this data. And there won't be there might be another list of things that needs to be researched. But my guess is it's not gonna be nearly as intense as
Right.
this one.
And the
It will
third
be
meeting
more
wouldn't
fine
have to
tuned.
be 2 months out, it could be 2 or 3 weeks out.
Yes.
Yeah. I agree.
I'd like to add to that, what is there any other thing that's on the horizon that other cities are looking at? Add to that list.
And I will say that after Canby, what are other cities doing? After Canby created its street maintenance fee, there were a number of other cities in Oregon that then used ours along with Milwaukee's and others to create their street maintenance fees. But the common denominator was that they were all tied to some sort of inflation. They were all tied to some sort of mechanism to increase them over time. So
That's the problem.
that's the problem. And if I had a time machine and I was allowed to do one thing, and it couldn't be going back to win the lottery, 20 years ago. It was related to something that I had done in the past as far as to benefit the city. It would be to go back to that meeting and say, this needs to be put forward to the council with an inflationary increase.
So Wilsonville charges $100 per business license plus $3 per employee.
Okay,
Plus $3 per employee.
If they make less than 12,000, it's $50 plus $3
okay.
per employee.
So yeah, so that's something, the thing I just want to make sure is that we're not putting too much.
The problem with
I want everybody to pay it.
the business license and all these other things, everyone else has got their hand up for that same thing.
Correct.
Yep.
They're all great ideas. I'm not saying it's just everyone's gonna have their hand.
Yeah.
You already have the vehicle to get the money.
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying
Exactly.
we've kind of come to the conclusion that trying to make up all that money in these two mechanisms, the gas tax and the street maintenance fee, is gonna be hard.
Real quick, I don't wanna drag this out any longer,
Sure.
but so we're at 85% right now?
No, wait.
75?
Our PCI right now,
Yeah.
we're
Or
at,
2018.
in 2018, we were at 75. We're below
75,
that.
and well,
Well,
We're on
the-
70 now.
we're
Off the
probably
date.
higher now because of all the new roads.
it's probably about,
Right.
par with the new roads.
So would it be easier to go to the city council just to start at 5 and start going up from there? Start the increase now.
That's a
We
great
didn't-
option,
We
too.
didn't start it 10 years ago or 15 years ago, let's start it now.
Mirror the parks,
Well,
start the inflation rates. Yeah, I would.
Because we've maintained, or barely maintained.
I mean,
I mean, it's just an option, I'm just saying, it's,
Those are the options.
To
we
get
need.
it going right now.
yeah.
I mean, yes, I mean, if this group wanted to make an immediate recommendation, that the council increase the fee, or at least tie the fee to inflation now, you are totally welcome to do that.
Why couldn't we do that now and then work on the other stuff?
And
That's what I'm
research
saying.
other
You
cities
can.
and.
You can
Then
essentially,
we should make that recommendation to you.
it would hit, when would the increase hit? It would hit with the next budget cycle, right? Or when would it?
Well, if you wanted to make that recommendation, we could add it to the master fee schedule right now. And it would be in effect for July 1st.
So there you go, we could expedite.
That would be a
That would help you.
big time. Well, it would be moving forward.
That's-
Moves
yes.
forward
I mean,
quickly.
It'd be
Yeah.
So
moving.
what does
Does
that
that take
5%
two
look
readings?
like?
It's
So-
not in
It's a
there.
resolution.
That was a resolution. Okay.
So the 5 per,
So
well
we're
now,
on-
so are
2
you,
weeks
are you talking about doing a,
219.
hold on a second. So are you talking about doing, what am I'm going to the wrong way. So are you talking about doing a 5% increase right out of the gate or an inflationary increase?
He was saying just start the inflationary base, just to get something.
If we're gonna do it, I mean, if you're gonna do it.
I
So
think inflation is.
inflation, and when I looked it up to draw that number for 2024, inflation is currently tracking at like, overall inflation is currently tracking at about 2.7 some odd percent. Where did I write it down?
I mean, we could
Yeah,
look
because
at.
you're,
So
well,
we get a bump
So-
of 5%,
So that's
add
only
5%.
14.
It's, so yeah, so when I pulled the numbers for today, inflation is tracking overall is tracking at 2.3%. But it would at least tie it to a mechanism. And then if this group can do other work and then say, hey, not only do we want you to tie this to the mechanism, but now we're also recommending a jump in the fee out of the gate and these other things. And so, yeah, this group can send up whatever it
So are
wants.
we suggesting a 2.7 increase to get to 5% or a 5%?
Well, no, it's-
No, it'd be a 5 times 2.7, right?
Correct.
And it's like the next,
2.3.
yeah, it's
It's
not,
not big.
it's not a big, but it puts us on the right, it puts us in motion to.
So we'd be at, we'd
I know
be
every-
at 7.3%.
Huh?
7.3 is what we'd be at.
Would be another.
So
So,
We
Councilor
had
Head,
5%.
yeah, Eileen said we can, yes, the new fee schedule's effective July 1st. We can make major changes to that, correct? I would suggest doing this all at once and not do it and then do it again and do it again. I would just wait until, do it all at once.
I don't often agree with Council President Hensley, but
You guys agree way
I
more than
agree.
either.
Well,
of you
people don't
would
think we do.
acknowledge.
We may be,
But neither of us want to admit it.
we may be at juxtapositions of the political pole, but oftentimes, a good friend of mine said, Jason, you and I might be at opposite ends of the political pole, but we might take different routes, but we all want to get to the same place, right? And this is, I think, one of those. So I also think that it would be better off for this group to send forward one package of recommendations rather than requesting a recommendation now and then requesting another recommendation. Because the council is a very fluid group, and trying to keep it as succinct as possible is great because we too get into traps about debating things maybe longer than is necessary. But ultimately, it is the consensus of this group. And I am very much, I want this to be a decision from the group. So if there is a consensus of the group to split these two things out and send them separately, we will do that. It
I
is
think
up to
there's
you.
pros and cons to both approaches. I think there's a pro approach to having a recommendation now.
Splitting the two.
I agree.
You agree?
I do.
Do you want a recommendation like right now today?
Yeah,
Make a recommendation today and then follow up with more recommendations later.
I mean, there's enough.
So that would be
evidence to
bringing it to the
support
ball
that.
roll twice. We would bring this piece on June
Not
19th
waiting.
and then the next piece after all the meetings are done.
So the
But-
discussion is making a recommendation to council to tie the street maintenance fee to an inflationary mechanism.
If it failed, we'd know where we stood.
because it's been since 2007.
Right, that's our argument.
That's our argument. Get the ball rolling.
So how
So
much
what
are
do
you,
you say?
how much are you inflating it by that?
It
Are
would
you
only
doing the
be-
746,
so
are you
with-
doing the 790?
No, so
You're
it would
just
be,
Just
it
start
would
at
be based
five.
on the
Start at
$5. The increase would be based on the $5.
It's
So
like
it would be
14, 15 cents, so I don't even know if it really
Per
makes a
household.
big deal for the next couple of months to bring it to us twice.
That's right, yeah. I don't like, I
That's
don't wanna see it, I don't wanna see it
$70,000 a
15
year though.
So-
How many
a
yards does
15
it
cent
give
increase
you,
for
right?
2 months,
Every-
and then you're gonna come
every
again and say
penny.
like, well, we were gonna bump it at $2.65.
Well, but yes, but the
I'd rather
thing
just
is
have a
that,
one-time bump, Me personally,
huh?
I would just like a one-time bump, like not be like, okay, I'm gonna raise this to $5.15.
Yep.
And then 2 months later or 3 months later, gonna be like, okay, now we're gonna raise it $2.45.
Okay, so we've got
That's what
Go
I think
higher.
she's saying, we better
recommendation
wait.
now,
I mean, we can
your
even,
weight. So we got,
I mean, we can even go mid-July, right? If we're just gonna, we're all working on a
At least if we
recommendation.
can
we
change
can-
the fee schedule anytime, we can make an adjustment. We will adopt the fee schedule for effective July 1st, but we could change that line item later. So we don't need to bring it to the June 19th meeting and bring it again later in the year. It would affect.
All the other stuff that's gonna come into play, all the other funds will just filter in. This one is just the main one. I mean, it's getting this up to par.
well, the
And we
way,
can go higher than
the
that.
way you get this up to par,
We don't have to just, we can go higher than $5.
I mean, if it's only 15 cents difference, then I
If you
tend to
just
agree with you.
tie it to inflationary,
Yeah.
it's only gonna be like a 15-cent increase.
Yeah.
So that's why we need to discuss, are we gonna take an initial bump and then tie it to an initial inflationary index
That's
after
what
that? And that would type some more discussion and bring a package to the council like council happens. So I don't know that we need to, it's a matter of a couple of months difference.
so what is the flavor of the group? Do you wanna wait and do all of the recommendations? Yes, and I am as well. Do you wanna wait and do all the recommendations all at once? Or do you wanna split them up and do a little now and a little later?
We lost Megan.
Yes, she had to step off.
What do you think, Jamie?
Don't I abstain also?
Yeah, I don't think it's staff.
Staff or staff.
I think it's
for.
It's
I think it's
essentially you.
actually, I will give my opinion, just because I think it's good for all of us to kind of provide insight, but I think that if, I understand the merits of wanting to do something now that then increases over time, because every little bit counts. I hear what Laura's saying about, if you raise it and then you raise it, even if it's just a palatable amount, it feels like, oh, I've been increased twice. I think the other thing is that, if there is pushback about this fee, even though we want to believe that everybody goes, the streets need help, this helps to do it. But if there's pushback and then someone says, well, why did you just do this piece? If you're just gonna come back, why didn't you bring a full package with all the input from what the fairgrounds does, what Cub does, what a small business pays versus, medium size and larger? I think that taking that little bit of time to do the due diligence of having the really clear picture that we just can't have today because we don't have all of the information will help to bring a recommendation forward that makes it something that regardless kind of where you sit, you can go, I get why they did it, I support it, and I look forward to paying it, hopefully.
Yeah, I won't say that much, but
Well,
at least it won't seem so knee-jerk.
I gotta be a little
And-
Pollyanna.
And you're just about to adopt the paving package already for the year anyway, so.
Yeah, give me an hour to take.
You're already kind of getting started.
No, you need to work on this one over here for the alleys, or wait, no, we
Yeah.
already budgeted those.
Yeah.
I voted yes on
Okay,
alleys.
good.
I advocated for alleys, I went to him about alleys.
There you go, I'm for the alleys as well, see, there you go.
So I think we're
It's
okay
him.
for the time being.
Yes,
Okay, let's go.
Yeah.
and
I've been
And
in
I-
alleys since
I
day one.
agree with everything Jamie said.
And what I will say to this effect is this as well. This group is gonna make some recommendations. It's not gonna fix the problem. It's going to be moving the needle towards fixing the problem. What I was as I said before, what I would like to see and what I will advocate as a city councilor when this comes across the dais, if this is the will of this group, is that in 3 to 5 years, this group is reconvened to see how the changes that are recommended have actually moved the needle. And then if it's, we need to do another bump here, we need to do some other stuff here to try and bring that up to snuff, and we get a little closer to where we need to be, then I think that is going to be the much, it's the long game, right? We're gonna have to, the city's gonna have to play the long game with this one. But by doing it every 3 to 5 years rather than every 16 years, it's gonna be easier to see that benefit. If that makes sense.
For sure.
And I think it was a good idea to say, can we just do this piece now, like, to have that conversation, because when you said that, I was like, I guess there's nothing that really stops from
There
doing
isn't,
it.
I don't know why,
Well,
why we're not just
and
going with
here's-
790,
Here is the thing.
2024.
Here is the pulpit that I have stood on, is that this decision lies with council. They could have decided to make these adjustments and increases long ago. But the council decided that this group needs to be the one to make that decision. So that is why, as an advocate for this group, when this comes across, I will advocate for the recommendation of this group being implemented in whole.
As for my part in that decision that this should be reconvened, is that I've long been an advocate for citizen input, and these kinds of committees is the best way to do that. And so I didn't want to just arbitrarily make a decision at the council level without getting the input of the citizen.
So your homework is, because
I wasn't told there was gonna be.
no group would be incomplete without homework, right? As members of this group, I think as this side, or however you want to say it, start to ask the people around, share what information you have gathered and learned in this meeting, and share your thoughts and ideas with the other people in the community that you interact with, other businesses, other citizens that pay into this process, and hear what they have to say, and start to plant the seed as to the value of this particular program. And then, come back with that information at our next meeting, because as Council President Hensley said, we really need the citizens' input on this. And for a survey, we will get certain citizens' input, but even most surveys we have put out is still, return rates are still in the single to barely double digits.
Yeah.
So that is one of the things that we'll look at.
Everybody's gonna go up a lot, so that then if it goes up like, a couple of dollars, they go, it's not so bad.
Right.
It's gonna go further.
I thought this would be $10.
So with that, is there any other questions, any thoughts, anything like that?
Are you just increasing the residential?
No, it would be across the
So
board.
it'd be across the board, so say you went from, so you're just gonna, if you go from 5 to 790, you're gonna figure out what that percentage is.
That's why we need all these data.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can't
Anything else?
we just raise it to 790? And anything else that comes in from these other things are just a bonus.
No, you
I
have
mean,
to
that
raise
can
it
become
across
part of
board
the
though, like-
recommendation, yeah.
Like Fred Meyer's will be 1443 anymore. It's gonna go up quite a
No,
bit.
that would be.
Now, I will say that 1,400 was what was projected out here. I did not see the actual report of what Fred Meyer is currently paying. It may be more, it may be less, I don't know, because the numbers in here were all hypothetical based on calculation at that point in time.
Yeah.
But
Which is why we asked for
one of the
what
things is
real
we'll
stuff
start to narrow that down and see what it actually is.
Well, and one of the things, and I just realized, I think Jeremy had found it earlier, but we started a spreadsheet that you could say, this is the number of units of residential, this is the number of apartments, this is how much they pay, so that it could be something you can actually move around and do. And I think that's kind of where we got stopped when we started looking at this in 2022. And so that it could be that we do something kind of interactive like that. I know all of the different business codes, you know, it changes, just look at the businesses that we have here represented. But there might be a way for us to kind of play in real time with some numbers so that then it makes it, you know, this feels like too much, this feels like not enough, and the end result is X, Y, Z, and that's how many, you know, feet we could do that.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea, is if there's a spreadsheet to say, you know, take all of these things, business license increase, this increase, that increase, so on and so forth, and say, okay, if we do just an inflationary mechanism, this is how it looks. If we do inflationary and a bump up, catch up, this is how it looks. If we do this, and then you can even say, well, if we do a $50 increase on business license or 25, you know, how does that calculate in that spreadsheet? I think that'd be a great idea. And then we could actually play with it, like you said, real time up here. Okay,
Who's gonna create the spreadsheet?
huh?
Who's gonna create the spreadsheet?
We'll work on that with the city.
Yeah, either Sherry and I or finance or some
Staff team will work on that.
sort of team in between, yeah.
Okay, anything else?
That's it.
Well, thank you all so much for your time tonight. It is greatly appreciated.
Nice meeting you
Yeah,
all.
thank you.
Yes, a pleasure. Yeah, I can.
So Laura, that homework assignment,